Chapter 828. Let's go together. I'll kick anyone who doesn't let you in. Lu Ming laughed. Qiao Xian was overjoyed. Qiao Xian told her father, Qiao Long, and Qiao Long agreed wholeheartedly. If Qiao Xian could participate in such a gathering, it would definitely increase her knowledge and insight. It would also be very helpful for her future cultivation. Immediately, the group flew toward the center of 9 dragons. The journey of tens of millions of miles was not far for them. They chatted as they flew. They arrived in less than a day. Tens of thousands of miles away, they could see a majestic mountain range meandering on the ground. It was one of the 3 dragon veins in the center of 9 dragons. After traveling for tens of thousands of miles, countless buildings appeared in front of them. There were all kinds of palaces, pavilions, and even shops. They could not see the end of it. It seemed to be a city. However, this city had no walls. Instead, it was filled with countless buildings. People came and went in the buildings. It was very lively. The group walked in and found restaurants, inns, and shops. There were all kinds of things. There were countless people in 9 dragons, and the land was vast. There were many special gathering places. Some places had city walls, such as Juhao City. Some places did not even need city walls, just like what they saw in front of them. The group strolled on the streets. Ting Ting, is the gathering on the dragon veins? Lu Ming asked. Yes, and it's at the dragon's head, under the divine 9 dragon cauldron. Why don't we go and take a look first? Ruan Ting said. Okay. Lu Ming was also curious. The group passed through the buildings and flew toward the dragon's head. Soon, they arrived at the dragon's head. There was an extremely wide plain at the dragon's head. In the middle of the plain there was a huge battle platform. There were many seats around the battle platform. According to Ruan Ting, this was the place where the Emperor Deity Palace used to hold grand events in the past. For example, there were sacrifices to the heavens or competitions between geniuses. Therefore, the exchange meeting a few days later was also held here. However, this was not what attracted the group's attention. Their attention was completely attracted by a huge cauldron in front of the open space. At the very front of the dragon head was a huge cauldron. The cauldron was pitch black and as big as a mountain. It towered into the clouds and was at least a few thousand meters tall. Looking from afar, the cauldron looked incomparably majestic. One could see numerous lifelike true dragons circling around it. This is the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron. There is a Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron at the head of each of the 9 dragon veins. Legend has it that the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron was already there when 9 Dragon City was founded. No one knows how many years have passed since then. It is said that the ancient experts used it to suppress the 9 dragon veins. Ruan Ting said, a supreme treasure? Why didn't anyone take it away? Lu Ming asked curiously. No one can take it away. Not even an Emperor Realm expert. The Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron has been in the world for a long time. It seems to be connected with the dragon vein and has existed since ancient times. Ruan Ting said. Lu Ming was shocked, looking at the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron in the distance. As for the fatty, Xian Yanqing, Qiao Xian, and the others, although they had heard of it before, it was their first time seeing it. They were also amazed. The 9 cauldrons were carved with true dragons and connected with the dragon vein. They were thousands of meters tall and had existed since ancient times. It was indeed a magnificent sight. Lu Ming and the others were not the only ones nearby. Many others stopped to watch. Over there, it seems like someone is approaching the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron. Xian Yanqing said. The others also saw a burly young man walking step by step toward the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron. The Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron emits a great pressure. If you are not an expert, you can't get close to it. Wang Haoxian, who had been silent, said. Let's go and take a look. Lu Ming said and strode forward. When they were 10,000 meters away from the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron, they felt a great pressure coming from the cauldron. At this moment, Lu Ming raised his eyebrows and a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. When he was 10,000 meters away from the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron, he suddenly felt something strange with the 9 dragons' bloodline. It seemed to be anxious and excited. What's going on? The 9 dragons' bloodline is strange. Is it because of the Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron? The Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron is engraved with true dragons to suppress the dragon vein. Maybe it really is related to the dragons. That's why the 9 dragons' bloodline is acting strange. Lu Ming guessed in his heart. They continued to move forward despite the pressure. Soon, Qiao Xian could not stand it anymore and stopped moving forward. Lu Ming and the others continued to move forward. The closer they got, the more they felt the divine nine-dragon cauldron was grand and majestic. It was full of vicissitudes as if it had crossed time and space from ancient times. In Lu Ming's body, the nine dragons' bloodline seemed to be more anxious and excited. The power of the bloodline seemed to be boiling. Bam! Bam! In front, a burly young man kept moving forward. His body was muscular and his blood qi was soaring. The blood qi vaguely formed a dragon that was roaring. "That's not a human. It's a demon. It's a dragon," Xian Yanqing said. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He also saw that the burly young man in front of him was not a human, but a dragon. He should be a genius from the Sky Demon Valley. A level 6 beast that could transform. The young man from the demon clan moved forward step by step and finally walked under the divine nine-dragon cauldron. He glanced at the cauldron and stretched out his hands to hug a corner of the cauldron. Haha, that dragon is really whimsical. It wants to hug the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Dream on. That's a treasure that even emperors can't touch. In the distance, someone sneered. Sure enough, the dragon looked up to the sky and roared, but the cauldron did not move. In the end, the dragon even showed its true form. It was a crimson dragon that was more than 200 meters long. Its claws grabbed the cauldron, but the cauldron still did not move. In the end, the dragon had no choice but to turn back into a human and retreat step by step. At this time, the nine dragons' bloodline in Lu Ming's body became even more violent, as if it was about to rush out of his body. Lu Ming's mind moved, and he controlled the nine dragons' bloodline. He could not let it appear here. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if word got out. Immediately, Lu Ming retreated. Roar! At this time, the nine dragons' bloodline seemed to let out a shocking roar. This roar sounded in Lu Ming's body, but the others could not hear it. But at this moment, a shocking scene happened. Dong! The divine nine-dragon cauldron in front of them suddenly shook. Suddenly, the dragon veins shook, the wind and clouds changed, and a terrifying pressure erupted from the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Oh no, retreat! Lu Ming and the others hurriedly retreated. After retreating 10,000 meters, the pressure was much less. After the divine nine-dragon cauldron shook for a while, it fell silent again, as if everything just now was an illusion. However, the scene had already exploded. Chapter 829. The divine nine-dragon cauldron, which even emperors couldn't touch, moved. Why? Why did it suddenly move? Countless people guessed in shock. Many people had even sent the news back to the elders in their families. Is it because of the nine dragons' bloodline? The divine nine-dragon cauldron moved because of the nine dragons' bloodline? Lu Ming guessed in his heart. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Lu Ming said. He estimated that a big shot would come soon to check on the situation. After all, the divine nine-dragon cauldron, which hadn't moved for thousands of years, suddenly moved. It was too abnormal. Bang! Suddenly, a tall figure descended behind Lu Ming and blocked Lu Ming's way. It was the flood dragon of the demon clan. Sir, why are you blocking my way? Lu Ming frowned. The flood dragon exuded a powerful aura as it stared at Lu Ming with a look of surprise and greed. Your bloodline is very special. Let me take your bloodline and I'll spare your life. The flood dragon said coldly. It was extremely overbearing and greedy. It seemed to have sensed the abnormality of the nine dragons' bloodline in Lu Ming's body. Nest, is there something wrong with this reptile's brain? Who does he think he is? He wants to take my bloodline as soon as he opens his mouth. Fatty was furious when he heard that. He stared at the flood dragon unkindly. How dare you be so arrogant here? This is Nine Dragons City. Ruan Tingting also said coldly. How dare you insult me? You're courting death. The flood dragon shouted coldly with a cold light in its eyes. Nest, this stinky reptile is still so arrogant. I suggest that we kill him and barbecue him. Fatty shouted and swallowed his saliva. You're courting death. The flood dragon shouted angrily and threw a punch at Fatty. I'm not afraid of you. Fatty raised his battle axe and charged forward. The axe whistled as it chopped down. Clang! The flood dragon's fist hit Fatty's battle axe. With a loud bang, Fatty's expression changed. His fat shook violently as he retreated 7 or 8 steps and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This flood dragon's level reached the peak of the 6th level of the 6th level, which was equivalent to the peak of the 6th level of the spiritual C tier, while the fatty was only at the 5th level of the spiritual C tier. None of you can leave today. The flood dragon's eyes glinted coldly. The bloodline purity of this serpent dragon has reached 20%. It's incredibly powerful. Wang Haoxian appeared beside Lu Ming and said, depending on the purity of the bloodline of the celestial beasts, one's talent and strength would differ as well. Ordinary descendants were said to have the bloodline of a divine beast, but it was very thin. It might only be 1% or a few tenths. Those that could reach 1/10 of the concentration were extremely rare. Such descendants were extremely powerful and could even contend with god-ranked geniuses who had awakened their god-ranked bloodline. The serpentine dragon before him possessed the bloodline of the pure-blooded dragon, and it had already achieved 20% of its bloodline. As for the flood dragon that Lu Ming had met on Jinsha Island in the chaotic astral ocean, it contained at most a few tenths of a true dragon's bloodline. Bang! The flood dragon stepped towards Lu Ming. On the side, Xian Yanqing and Wang Haoxian were about to make a move. Let me! Lu Ming waved his hand, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Boom! The flood dragon was very domineering, and it threw a punch at Lu Ming. Since you don't want to hand it over, I'll take it myself. The flood dragon's mouth curled into a sinister sneer. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with killing intent, and he said, Fatty, I'll eat the meat of the flood dragon tonight. Then he took a step forward and threw out a palm. The palm and the flood dragon's fist collided. Bang! There was a dull roar in the air, and then the flood dragon's expression changed drastically. Its body trembled and it retreated. Dong! Lu Ming took a step forward, and in an instant, he was 100 meters away. He caught up with the flood dragon and threw out another palm. Roar! The flood dragon roared and turned into a 200-meter-long crimson flood dragon. Its scales were dense, and its dragon claws were as sharp as knives. It tore at Lu Ming. Lu Ming threw out another palm, and it collided with the flood dragon's claws. The flood dragon roared, and its huge body frantically retreated. One of its finger bones was broken by Lu Ming. This flood dragon had 20% of the bloodline of the true dragon, and its strength was about the same as Guei Yu's. Naturally, it was completely crushed by Lu Ming. Lu Ming strode forward, grabbed one of the flood dragon's claws, and with a loud roar, he threw the flood dragon's huge body directly into the air and heavily smashed on the ground by Lu Ming. Boom! The ground shook violently, but the ground here had been suppressed by the divine nine-dragon cauldron for many years, and it was indestructible. The huge flood dragon's body smashed down, and the ground only shook, but it did not break at all. A series of crackling sounds were heard, and the flood dragon screamed. It did not know how many of its bones were broken, and its body was bleeding profusely. Nearby, the others who were watching were dumbfounded. Lu Ming was too violent. Such a powerful flood dragon was like a useless worm in the hands of Lu Ming. Haha, let me do it. Tonight, we'll eat flood dragon meat. Fatty shouted, and with a battle axe, he chopped at the flood dragon. The flood dragon roared and struggled. The moment Fatty chopped at it, its body continued to shrink. At the same time, its body was covered in a bloody light, like a bloody flame burning. But it was still a step too late. Blood splattered everywhere, and one of its legs was chopped off by Fatty. Whoosh! In the next moment, the flood dragon turned into a bloody light and disappeared in an instant. Lu Ming wanted to let Fatty have it, but when he let his guard down, the flood dragon disappeared. It actually burned the divine beast bloodline in its body. Even if it doesn't die, it's ruined its future. Lu Ming muttered. Just now, the flood dragon's speed increased because it burned the divine beast bloodline in its body. Of course, this was also the reason why Lu Ming let his guard down. Otherwise, even if the flood dragon burned its divine beast bloodline, it would not be able to escape. Next, it actually ran away. Luckily, it left a leg. Fatty shouted gloomily, and ran toward the flood dragon's leg that was dozens of meters long. Haha, let's go back and roast the flood dragon meat. Fatty hugged the flood dragon's leg and carried it on his shoulder. He laughed, and his saliva almost flowed out. Nearby, the others were speechless. This group of people, are they really going to roast the flood dragon's leg? Many of them even swallowed their saliva. The flood dragon's meat that contained the true dragon's bloodline was a great tonic. Fatty, let's go back and roast the meat, but you should keep it first. Lu Ming smiled. Fatty kept the flood dragon's leg, and the group left happily. They came to a small mountain hundreds of thousands of miles away, lit a bonfire, and started roasting the flood dragon's leg. Fatty was an elite foodie. His roasting skills were superb, and he always had seasonings like soy sauce, vinegar, oil, salt, and other seasonings in his storage ring. Soon, the flood dragon's leg turned golden. The grease dripped, and the aroma filled the air. The flood dragon's meat was cut into pieces, and the group ate heartily. Chapter 8:30. When the flood dragon meat entered his stomach, it turned into a warm heat that spread throughout his body. There were traces of true dragon bloodline flowing throughout his body, which was extremely beneficial to his physical body and could increase his physical body's strength. If he could eat it for a long time, the benefits would be endless. Haha, Lu Ming, how can there be no good wine when there's meat? Here. Fatty waved his hand and jugs of wine appeared, flying to Lu Ming, Xueqi, and the others. Everyone opened the jugs and drank in big mouthfuls. Fatty, I didn't expect your skills to be so good. Ruan Tingting drank a few mouthfuls of wine, but she did not force the wine out of her body. Instantly, her beautiful face flushed red, making her look even more beautiful. Fatty was stunned, almost drooling. Ting, how is it? Follow me from now on, I guarantee you'll eat and drink well every day. Xueqi, Xiao, and the others looked down on Fatty. This reason was too shallow. Just as Lu Ming and the others were eating and drinking, at the dragon's head, under the Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron, many important people came. They received news that the Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron, which had remained motionless for thousands of years, actually moved. They immediately rushed over to check the situation, but unfortunately, no matter what they did, the Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron did not move. They did not know why the Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron moved, so in the end, they could only leave it as it was. More than 2 hours later, Lu Ming was full, and the remaining flood dragon meat was put away by Fatty in the name of storage. Just like that, they sat cross-legged on the small mountain peak, each of them cultivating and waiting for the gathering 2 days later. Wang Haoxian did not cultivate. Her heart was in a mess. In the past, she was focused on cultivation, and the only person close to her was her younger brother. She did not have any other friends, and did not fit in with the other Wang family geniuses. However, over the past few days, when she was with Lu Ming and the rest, she felt very relaxed and comfortable. She suddenly felt that she enjoyed such an atmosphere very much. Is this what friends are like? Wang Haoxian muttered, then shook her head, reminding herself that she followed Lu Ming because she had no other choice. If there was a chance, she would still avenge her younger brother. Although she tried to convince herself, her heart could not calm down, and she was not in the mood to cultivate. The others naturally did not know that Wang Haoxian was thinking nonsense. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. On this day, the huge platform under the Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron was bustling with people. Young men and women of different temperaments, all of them flying. Lu Ming, Xueqi, the fatty, and the group of 6 also came here. They found an area and sat down. So many geniuses. Most of the top 300 god-level geniuses are here. Wang Haoxian looked around and said softly. Wang Haoxian was the only one on the list of top 1,000 talents. Naturally, he knew more people than Lu Ming and the rest. Of course, most of the young people who came were here to watch the show. It was impossible for them to participate in the exchange. This exchange was destined to be a showdown between the top figures. Someone shouted. In the north, a group of more than 200 people, all dressed in long black robes, flew toward them. Of course, they were all young people, and there were no seniors. The most eye-catching one was the person flying at the front. He was tall and burly, but he was carrying a coffin on his back. The coffin was pitch black. Even though it was broad daylight and there was a sea of people, everyone still felt that it was eerie and very scary when they looked at it. That's Xueqi, ranked 102nd on the list of top 1,000 talents. He refined corpses like demons. Wang Haoxian said with a serious face. The other people's faces also turned serious. The 102nd on the list of top 1,000 talents was absolutely terrifying. Obviously, Xueqi was the leader of the Heavenly Corpse sect. The 200 people of the Heavenly Corpse sect stood motionless in the void. Whoosh, whoosh. Just then from the east, There was a burst of air-rending sounds. Many young people flew through the air. There were about 200 of them. But these young men had different temperaments. Some looked ferocious, some looked heroic, some looked cold, and some looked charming. The clothes they wore were also of all shapes and sizes, with all sorts of colors. The demons of the Sky Monster Valley had arrived. The demons of the Sky Monster Valley also stood in the air, looking down at the people below with a powerful aura. Their gazes swept across the entire area with faint disdain. The talents of the Sky Monster Valley had the bloodline of divine beasts. They thought they were superior and looked down on the martial artists of the human clan. It was just a rumor, but now it seemed that it was true. It's that flood dragon. Fatty clicked his tongue and whispered. Among the demons, they saw a burly youth. This burly youth had a broken leg. It was the same Wyrm whose leg was chopped off by Fatty 2 days ago. The flood dragon's eyes were gloomy as he scanned the crowd. The next moment, he saw Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and the others were also in the east. When the flood dragon saw Lu Ming and the others, his eyes were cold and murderous. He whispered a few words in the ear of a young man in red armor beside him. Then, the young man in red armor looked coldly at Lu Ming and the others. Whoosh! Whoosh! The flood dragon and the young man in red armor instantly appeared above Lu Ming and the others. A powerful and violent aura burst out and suppressed Lu Ming and the others. What's going on? The others beside him were shocked. Lu Ming and the others sat still. Are you the ones who broke Ao Chen's leg? The young man in red armor said coldly as he looked down at Lu Ming and the others. Flood dragon meat tastes good. Fatty licked his lips and sneered. You're courting death. The young man in red armor shouted angrily. His aura became even more violent as if he was going to kill them in the next moment. The other young men of the demon clan looked on with cold smiles. Friends of the demon clan, the exchange has not started yet. Please go back now. At this moment, a voice came from afar like a breeze. As the voice fell, a figure walked in the air. It was a young man in a green robe. He had sharp eyebrows and was very handsome. He had a gentle smile on his face, but there was an invisible majesty exuding from his body. Di Feng, it's Di Feng. Many people exclaimed. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Di Feng, who was ranked 101st on the list of top 1,000 talents, was said to be the descendant of Martial Emperor Di. He had the talent of his ancestor and was extremely powerful. Di Feng. The young man in red armor looked fearful. Di Feng looked at the young man in red armor and the flood dragon. He smiled and said, please go back. If you want to fight, we will fight when the exchange begins. Since Di Feng had spoken, the young man in red armor had to give him face. He snorted and looked at Lu Ming and the others. You broke Ao Chen's leg. I will pay you back double. Chapter 831. Brother Shuremo, Brother Peng. How should we proceed with this exchange? Why don't you give us some suggestions? Di Feng smiled and looked at a young man in golden robes among Shuremo and the beast race. In the 9-Dragon City, the number of prodigies is definitely more than the Emperor Divine Palace. If all of you go up, we will be at a disadvantage. How about this? For each level, each side will send out 10 people and take turns to compete. When one side is eliminated, the side with the most people remaining will win. What do you guys think? Shuremo spoke. His voice was extremely hoarse, like the sound of metal rubbing against each other. Good, that's what I want. The young man in golden robes spoke. Obviously, he was the leader of the beast race. Okay, I have no objections. However, forget about the lower 3 levels of the spiritual sea realm. Let's start from the 4th level. How about that? Di Feng said. Okay. Shuremo and the young man in golden robes both nodded in agreement. Since that's the case, let's choose our own candidates. After saying that, Di Feng flew down from the spectator stand and discussed the matter of the candidates with the other human prodigies. This battle was considered the most intense battle before the Battle of Providence. It could be used to test the other side and also to suppress the other side's momentum. The 3 sides didn't dare to be careless and would send out their strongest candidates. After a while, a young man flew over to Lu Ming's side. After flying over, he cupped his fists at Kong Jin and said, Brother Kong Jin? It's me. The fatty was slightly stunned. Brother Kong Jin's cultivation should be at the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm. Young Master Di Feng would like to invite Brother Kong to participate in the battle of the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm. The young man said. Me? Haha, thanks to young Master Di Feng, I agree. The fatty laughed loudly and felt a little smug. With so many people choosing him, he was naturally proud. Lu Ming and the others were moved. It was probably because of the fatty's powerful battle prowess in the battle with the Heavenly Corpse sect. That was why he was invited to participate. Many thanks. The young man smiled and then turned to leave. Why didn't you invite Lu Ming? Ruan Tingting was a little surprised. Logically speaking, half a month ago, in the battle with Ghost Moon of the Heavenly Corpse sect, Lu Ming showed even more powerful battle prowess. Why didn't they invite Lu Ming for the battle of the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm? Xian Yanqing, the fatty, Qiao, and the others were also surprised. I guess they didn't choose Lu Ming's battle prowess because there are too many of them, and they don't know Lu's bloodline level, so they don't. Not long after, the candidates from the 3 parties were selected. This time around, our Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace will be the host. Let's start with our Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. Di Feng smiled and announced a name. Whoosh! A young man flew to the fighting ring in the middle. His body was as sharp as a blade, and his aura was extremely sharp. He was at the peak of the 4th level of the spiritual sea realm. Judging by his cultivation method, he was the Jiang clan's genius. Who will fight with me? The Jiang clan genius looked in the direction of the Heavenly Corpse sect and Sky Monster Valley. Let me! A figure flashed out from the Heavenly Corpse sect and landed in the fighting ring. His aura was also at the peak of the 4th level of the spiritual sea realm. Dong! Without saying anything, the Jiang clan youth stepped forward. His aura was even sharper. He was like a saber. His arm was like a saber, and he slashed at the Heavenly Corpse sect youth. The Heavenly Corpse sect youth quickly retreated and distanced himself from the Jiang clan genius. With a wave of his hand, 9 refined corpses appeared in front of him. The 9 refined corpses all exuded an ancient aura. They wore metal armor and held bronze spears in their hands. The aura emitted by the 9 refined corpses had all reached the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm. The Heavenly Corpse sect youth was only at the peak of the 4th level of the spiritual sea realm, but he could control 9 refined corpses at the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm. It was absolutely terrifying. Kill! The Jiang clan genius put on a serious expression and slashed down with his palm. Dong! He clashed with one of the refined corpses and sent it flying. The refined corpse had copper skin and iron bones, and it was invulnerable. The Jiang clan genius only sent it flying, but he didn't break it. After the refined corpse was sent flying, the other 8 refined corpses pounced on the Jiang clan's genius. 8 long spears pierced through the void, emitting terrifying sonic booms as they charged towards the Jiang clan's genius. The Jiang clan genius looked up to the sky and roared. His whole body emitted a black light, like an extremely sharp divine weapon, and he attacked. The 2 of them were definitely extremely powerful geniuses. Although they weren't god-grade geniuses, their battle strength was absolutely terrifying among those of the same level. The 2 fought fiercely, and in the blink of an eye, dozens of rounds had passed. The Jiang clan genius attacked, trying to break through the defense of the refined corpses and kill the Heavenly Corpse sect disciple. The best way to break through the refined corpses was to defeat the person controlling them. However, facing 9 fearless refined corpses that were 2 levels higher than him, it was extremely difficult for the Jiang clan genius to break through. The situation became a stalemate for a while. After more than 100 rounds, the Jiang clan genius's vital energy ran out and he was blasted off the fighting ring, ending in defeat. The Emperor Heaven Divine Palace lost the first battle of the exchange, which made many people's faces turn ugly. After the Heavenly Corpse sect youth won, he flew off the fighting ring and sat down cross-legged to recover. He could have continued to fight, but it was obvious that he had consumed a lot of energy. He could only fight again after he recovered. The Heavenly Corpse sect won this battle, so they should send another person to fight. Whoosh! Another Heavenly Corpse sect youth stepped onto the fighting ring. This time, it was the Sky Beast Valley's turn to fight. This time, the Sky Beast Valley sent out a tall youth, who was a demonic tiger. He had the bloodline of the Divine Beast Heavenly Tiger, but the concentration of his bloodline had not reached 10%. Among the demonic beasts, it was extremely rare for their bloodline to reach 10% concentration, just like how it was rare for a human to awaken a god-grade bloodline. However, even though it had not reached 10% concentration, it was close. This demonic tiger was very powerful. After exchanging dozens of rounds with the Heavenly Corpse Sect's disciple, he defeated his opponent. In this way, the Heavenly Corpse Sect and the Sky Beast Valley each won a battle. I will continue to fight. Now, it's the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace's turn, right? The demonic tiger looked at the many geniuses of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Let me. A youth flew up from the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. This time, the geniuses were from the top of the 6 ancient clans, the Dongfang clan. They were the geniuses of the Dongfang clan. It was said that the Dongfang clan had 2 god-grade cultivation techniques, which were extremely powerful. Chapter 832. Just like that, the 3 parties took turns to fight, each with their own victories and defeats. Most of the god-level talents on the list of top 1,000 talents were at the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm, such as Long Qianli and Wang Haoxian, who were at the bottom of the list, were at the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm. Therefore, there were very few god-level talents at the 4th level of the spiritual sea realm. In the end, a new talent appeared in the Heavenly Corpse Sect, who had awakened the bloodline of the 1st level of the god level. In the end, the Heavenly Corpse Sect won the battle of the 4th level of the spiritual sea realm. This made Defeng's face turn gloomy. In the past, Emperor Heaven Divine Palace and Sky Demon Valley were about the same in strength, and the Heavenly Corpse Sect was the weakest. But this time, the Heavenly Corpse Sect won the battle. Next, let's start the battle of the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm. Defeng announced. The battle of the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm was more intense, and the power was more terrifying. However, this fighting ring was covered with inscription arrays. Not to mention the spiritual sea realm, even the spiritual embryo realm could not destroy it, so everyone could fight to their heart's content. In the beginning, the battle of the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm was also won by each of the 3 parties. But soon, Sky Demon Valley sent out a powerful descendant whose bloodline had reached the 10th level. His combat power was extremely terrifying, and he suppressed the other 2 parties. This person had the bloodline of the ancient heavenly crocodile, and his defensive power was terrifying. 3 people from the Heavenly Corpse Sect and Emperor Heaven Divine Palace were defeated by him. Damn it! Doesn't our Emperor Heaven Divine Palace have any god-level talents at the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm? The talents on the list of top 1,000 talents seem to have reached the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm. If there are any, they must be new talents. Everyone was talking about it. Let me. At this moment, a figure flew into the field. Someone recognized that this young man was one of the Emperor Heaven Forbidden Guards. What was exciting was that this talent had awakened the 1st level of the god-level bloodline, and his combat power was so strong that he fought with the talent of the demon clan. After hundreds of rounds, the battle ended in a draw. Finally, everyone discussed and decided that it was a draw. But what was frustrating was that another young man from Sky Demon Valley went up. This young man was a flood dragon, and his bloodline. He had also reached the 10th level. He had consecutively defeated several geniuses of the Heavenly Corpse Sect and the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. It can't be. The Sky Beast Valley has so many powerful existences in the 5th layer of the spiritual sea realm. Could it be that they are going to lose this battle again? If that's the case, the Heavenly Corpse Sect and the Sky Demon Valley will each win a round. This is very disadvantageous for our Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. Indeed. The 6th layer of the spiritual sea realm is the battlefield of the deity-grade prodigies. There are many deity-grade prodigies, and none of them are weak. It's too difficult to win in the end. It's the same for the 7th layer of the spiritual sea realm. If that's the case, wouldn't our Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace fall behind this time? Many people from the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace were discussing this and feeling worried. I'll go and meet this flood dragon. Maybe I can even get a piece of flood dragon meat. This flood dragon seems to be of the wind attribute. Fatty licked his lips. Everyone else was speechless. Fatty, can you do it? The other party is a descendant with 10% of the divine beast's bloodline. Ruan Tingting was a little worried. The fatty's 3rd bloodline had yet to be awakened. Would he be able to defeat the other party? Tingting, don't worry. This fatty isn't that weak, Lu Ming said with a faint smile. Fatty's battle prowess was extremely strong. Before Lu Ming awakened his divine bloodline, he wasn't confident of winning against Fatty. In a battle of the same level, even if the other party had 10% of the divine beast's bloodline, Lu Ming would still believe in Fatty. The previous flood dragon was at the peak of the 6th layer of the spiritual sea realm and had 20% of the divine beast's bloodline. That was why Fatty was suppressed. Haha, Lu Ming knows me best. Fatty smiled. Carrying his axe, he leaped into the air. Little reptile, let me have a go at you. Fatty chuckled. Fat pig, you're courting death. This flood dragon from the demon race wore a green robe and had a gloomy expression. Ao Feng, cripple this fatty for me. In the demon race's area, Ao Chen's cold voice rang out. Previously, one of his legs was chopped off by Fatty's axe. What are you shouting for? The flood dragon meat is indeed tasty. There's still some left. After the fight, I'll go back and roast it. Fatty grinned. This time, the demonic beasts were infuriated. Damn it, this fatty deserves to die. Kill this fat pig. This is outrageous. Many demon race geniuses shouted angrily and looked at Fatty with murderous intent. As for the people from the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, they were stunned. Could it be that Fatty really roasted the flood dragon meat? It's true. I saw it with my own eyes. Previously, someone saw Lu Ming and the rest chopping off one of Ao Chen's legs and confirmed it. Many people looked at Ao Chen and realized that he was indeed missing a leg. Instantly, their expressions became even stranger. Fatty, you're dead meat. I'll cripple your limbs. Ao Feng's expression was extremely ugly. Nonsense, eat my axe. Fatty raised his axe and chopped at Ao Feng. A long spear appeared in Ao Feng's hand and stabbed at Fatty. Clang! There was a loud sound and the long spear buzzed. Ao Feng's long spear shook violently. Ao Feng was actually pushed back by Fatty. How can this be? Ao Feng roared and waved his spear again. Sky-suppressing demonic axe. The huge axe in Fatty's hand turned into a heaven-splitting axe and chopped at Ao Feng like a storm. Clang! Clang! There were continuous explosions in the fighting ring. The battle axe and the long spear kept clashing. Every time they clashed, Ao Feng had to take a step back. Everyone in the fighting ring was astonished. Fatty obviously had not awakened his divine bloodline. However, he could suppress Ao Feng, whose bloodline was 10% pure. His combat strength was too terrifying. This person's combat strength is extremely strong. Judging from his appearance, he has not awakened his third bloodline. If he can awaken a divine bloodline with his third bloodline, his potential will be limitless. We must think of a way to rope him into our camp. Di Feng said to someone beside him. Martial monarch De had many descendants. They competed with each other and were divided into many camps. That's right. However, this person has not awakened his third bloodline. If he can't awaken a divine bloodline, everything will be in vain. Another person said. Yes, let's observe him for a while more. Lu Ming, who is with him, and that beautiful lady, Xian Yanqing, are also rare talents. Lu Ming, if I'm not wrong, should have awakened his divine-level bloodline. Di Feng said. Another person nodded. Roar! At that moment, Ao Feng roared and transformed into his true form. He then pounced at Fatty. When a beast transformed into its true form, its combat strength could be unleashed perfectly. Worm, watch how I kill you! Fatty shouted. His fat body swelled up and the battle axe in his hand became even more terrifying. It became a heaven-splitting axe and slashed at the serpent. Bang! Bang! A violent collision occurred. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had exchanged more than 10 blows. Fatty became fiercer and fiercer as he roared into the sky. Slash! Chapter 833. Ao Feng let out a shrill scream. His huge body struggled crazily and retreated. After a few breaths, he left the fighting ring and turned back into a human, looking at the Fatty with resentment. A huge flood dragon's claw was left on the fighting ring. Damn it, damn it! Ao Feng yelled. Bang! At this moment, a figure fell heavily on the fighting ring, emitting a strong murderous intent. This figure was wearing red armor. It was the young man who provoked Lu Ming with Ao Chen. Damn Fatty, you've completely pissed me off. The young man in red armor said coldly with a hint of madness in his voice. The aura he emitted was at the peak of the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm. My name is Ao Kuan. Fat pig, do you dare to fight with me? The young man in red armor stared at the Fatty. Lu Ming frowned. He felt that this young man was not simple. He was indeed at the peak of the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm, but he was extremely arrogant. He knew that Lu Ming had defeated Ao Qian, but he still dared to provoke Lu Ming. He was definitely not simple. Fatty, be careful. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to the fatty. The fatty's eyes flashed and he grinned. Why not? Bang. As soon as the fatty finished speaking, Ao Kuan stepped forward and threw out a punch. Fast, too fast. Ao Kuan's body and fist seemed to be connected. With a punch, he had already appeared in front of the fatty. His fist was aimed at the fatty's arm. He wanted to cripple the fatty's arm. The fatty's face changed. He did not expect the opponent to be so fast. At the critical moment, he could only pick up his battle axe to block. Clang! Ao Kuan's fist hit the fatty's battle axe. The battle axe shook violently, and the fatty's face changed greatly. His fat body was thrown back. Bang! Ao Kuan stomped heavily on the ground. His whole body was like an ancient ferocious beast, rushing towards the fatty in a barbaric way. He threw another punch at the fatty's arm. The fatty roared. His body swelled, and the battle axe was thrown out like the wind. Dong! Ao Kuan's fist was even tougher than divine weapons. When it collided with the battle axe, an oppressive boom rang out. Amidst the intense vibrations, the fatty let out a miserable groan. He actually couldn't hold on to the battle axe any longer. The battle axe was flung far away, and he retreated madly, coughing up blood. Countless people's expressions changed. This scene was too shocking. Just now, Fatty's battle prowess was obvious to all. While he hadn't awakened his divine bloodline, he had still defeated a flood dragon with 10% divine bloodline, shocking everyone present. But now, in front of Ao Kuan, he didn't have the strength to fight back? Without a doubt, Ao Kuan was also a descendant that possessed a powerful divine beast bloodline. The key question was, just how thick was it that it was so terrifying? Cripple your limbs. Ao Kuan shouted coldly and strode towards Fatty. Fatty, get off the stage and admit defeat. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Fatty. On the side, Xian Yanqing frowned. Ruan Tingting and Qiao Xian's hearts were in their throats. Bam! The fatty took a step back, and his fat body retreated rapidly. However, Ao Kuan's speed was too terrifying. He caught up with the fatty in an instant, and another terrifying punch was thrown out. There were no extra movements, just a simple punch. However, Ao Kuan's physical strength was too terrifying. Fatty roared and an ancient shield appeared in his hand, blocking in front of him. Boom! Ao Kuan's punch landed on the ancient shield and sent it flying. The ancient shield collided with Fatty's body, almost flattening him. Fatty's body was also sent flying backwards. This time, he was directly blasted out of the fighting ring and fell heavily off the fighting ring. Ruan Tingting and Qiao Xian immediately flew over and helped Fatty up. Fatty, you're not dead, right? Ruan Tingting asked with concern. Fatty coughed out a few more mouthfuls of blood. His face was pale as he said, I'm fine, it's nothing. My skin is rough and my flesh is thick. Humph, you're lucky this time. Ao Kuan stood on the stage, looking down at Fatty and said coldly, what are you being arrogant for? If I awaken my divine beast bloodline, I'll crush you like a bug. Fatty clamored as a cold light flashed in his eyes. Fatty was not one to suffer losses. This time, he was defeated so miserably because he had not awakened his third bloodline. Fatty, when the exchange is over, I'll take revenge for you. Lu Ming walked over and glanced at Ao Kuan coldly. Ao Kuan looked straight into Lu Ming's eyes and smiled coldly. Lu Ming and Fatty returned to the spectator stand. Fatty began to heal his injuries. Who else wants to fight? Ao Kuan looked around and planned to continue to challenge. The arena was silent. Although there were still a few people from Emperor Heaven Divine Palace and Heavenly Corpse sect who had not fought, they were just ordinary geniuses. Ao Kuan's combat strength was too terrifying. If they went up, wouldn't they be looking for trouble? No one from either side went up. Let the Sky Demon Valley win this round. Di Feng said helplessly. Sky Demon Valley won the battle of 5th level spiritual sea realm. However, Ao Kuan did not plan to go down. He looked around and said, since that's the case, I'll challenge your 6th level spiritual sea realm experts. Come. What? Your 5th level spiritual sea realm, and you want to challenge 6th level spiritual sea realm experts? Too arrogant. The surrounding crowd shouted out in displeasure. Brother Peng. He's 5th level spiritual sea realm. Is he really going to participate in the battle of 6th-level spiritual sea realm experts? Di Feng frowned and looked at the golden-robed young man. That's right. Among the 10 5th-level spiritual sea realm experts, there's Aokuan's name. Among the 6th-level spiritual sea realm experts, there's also Aokuan's name. Why? It should be okay for a lower level to participate in a higher level battle, right? The golden-robed young man smiled. Of course. Di Feng nodded. As long as one was willing, it was okay for a lower level to participate in a higher level battle. Aokuan wanted to participate in the battle of 6th-level spiritual sea realm experts with 5th-level spiritual sea realm strength. Who wants to fight? Aokuan looked around. I'll do it. A voice sounded. A young man from Emperor Heaven Divine Palace flew up to the battle stage. There was no lack of geniuses in the 6th-level spiritual sea realm. Both Emperor Heaven Divine Palace and Heavenly Corpse Sect had many experts. This young man was a genius of the Emperor Heaven Forbidden Guard. He had awakened a 2nd-level divine bloodline and was extremely powerful. In the next moment, the two figures clashed together. However, the result of the battle was shocking. In just a few moves, the Emperor Heaven Forbidden Guard expert was forced to retreat. In the end, he even used bloodline fusion, but it was useless. He was beaten back to his original form and was blasted off the battle stage while spitting out blood. Everyone was shocked. With a lower level of cultivation, Aokuan defeated a genius who had awakened a 2nd-level divine bloodline. That was too terrifying. 50% divine beast bloodline. Di Feng's eyes flashed as he said a shocking result. Countless people gasped. This Aokuan actually had 50% divine beast bloodline. That was too terrifying. It meant that half of the blood in Aokuan's body was no different from that of a divine beast. If a human martial artist could not awaken a 5th-level divine bloodline, they would not be able to compete with him at the same level. Even if their cultivation was one level higher, they would have to awaken a 4th-level divine bloodline at least. Chapter 834. Fuck. So he has 50% true dragon bloodline. No wonder he's so arrogant. But if I awaken a divine bloodline, I'll definitely beat him. The fatty cursed, but he was very confident. Fatty, keep bragging. You can awaken a divine bloodline above level 5? Ruan Tingting said. There was an uproar, and all kinds of discussions were going on. 50% divine beast bloodline was equivalent to a level 5 divine bloodline. Only the top geniuses on the list of top 1,000 talents in the Eastern Wilderness had such a bloodline. Even Di Feng and Shi Mo, the strongest geniuses present, only had level 4 divine bloodline. If Aokuan's cultivation improved, he would immediately be on par with the top 100 geniuses on the list of top 1,000 talents. Who else wants to come up? Aokuan looked around arrogantly. Everyone was silent. After a while, someone from the Heavenly Corpse Sect went up. This person was an extremely famous genius, ranked 189 on the list of top 1,000 talents. He had awakened a level 3 divine bloodline and was at the peak of the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm. This person fought with Aokuan, and the two exchanged nearly 100 blows. In the end, Aokuan reverted to his original form, which was a 500-meter-long blood-red flood dragon. He was like a real dragon, and with just one blow, he sent the genius of the Heavenly Corpse Sect flying. He won another round. At this time, both the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace and the Heavenly Corpse Sect were silent. Was Aokuan going to win the round of the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm as well? There were still a few geniuses from the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace who had awakened a level 3 divine bloodline, but the genius of the Heavenly Corpse Sect had been defeated. Their level 3 divine bloodline had also been defeated. In addition, there were a few geniuses who had awakened a level 4 divine bloodline, but their cultivation had surpassed the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm. Both sides fell silent. They did not expect such a terrifying genius to appear in the Sky Monster Valley. Moreover, he was a newly risen genius, and his cultivation was not particularly high. On the list of top 1,000 talents, the geniuses of the same level as him were already very high in cultivation, far exceeding the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm. Aokuan returned to his human form and scanned the surroundings. Suddenly, he looked at Lu Ming and pointed a finger at Lu Ming, saying loudly, aren't you very arrogant? You injured a prodigy of my Flood Dragon tribe and crippled one of his legs. Now, I challenge you to a duel. Do you dare to accept? Following Aokuan's finger, almost everyone looked at Lu Ming. Aokuan wanted to challenge Lu Ming? Clearly, There was some sort of conflict between the two of them. You want to challenge him? He's not in our list of 10. Di Feng frowned. It doesn't matter. This time, it's not part of the competition. It's a personal grudge between us. Aokuin said loudly, then looked at Lu Ming and said, Kid, come up and fight me if you have the guts. If you don't, you can just admit defeat and kneel down and beg for mercy. Lu Ming stood up with a cold smile on his face. He was also a little surprised that Aokuin would take the initiative to challenge him. However, this was exactly what he wanted. Originally, he was not in the list of 10, so he could not fight. He was still thinking of finding trouble with Aokuin after the exchange. He did not expect Aokuin to send himself to him. I accept this duel. Lu Ming's figure moved and he appeared in the fighting ring directly. This surprised many people. Aokuin's combat strength was obvious to all. He was extremely powerful. Even if he was one level higher than him, he would be almost invincible. Lu Ming dared to accept the challenge? Where did his confidence come from? Or was he provoked by Aokuin and could not put down his pride? Wasn't this too unwise? Wasn't he looking for a beating by going up the fighting ring? Haha, I didn't expect you to dare to go up the fighting ring. Then do you dare to fight me to the death? A trace of hidden greed flashed in Aokuin's eyes. Last time, Ao Qian told him that there was something in Lu Ming's body that was very tempting to him. It was very likely that it was Lu Ming's bloodline, which made him very tempted. Something that could make Ao Qian unable to resist the temptation was definitely extraordinary. Perhaps it could make the density of his true dragon bloodline reach a higher level. Although Lu Ming had now restrained himself and he could not sense it, he still decided to find a chance to kill Lu Ming and seize Lu Ming's bloodline. Therefore, he proposed a life-and-death duel. The people around were also shocked. It seemed that Lu Ming had a deep grudge with the Jiao Dragon tribe. Otherwise, why would Aokuin propose a life-and-death duel? A life-and-death duel was different from the previous sparring. Previously, the sparring would usually end with serious injuries at most. A life-and-death duel would only end when one side died. Would Lu Ming agree? Everyone could not help but look forward to it. A life-and-death duel to determine life and death. Fatty, this whole Jiao Dragon meat is enough for us to eat for 10 days to half a month, right? Lu Ming suddenly smiled and looked at Fatty. Haha, it's enough. It should be enough if we eat sparingly. Fatty grinned. However, his eyes were a little serious. He secretly sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming, telling him to be careful. He had just felt that Aokuin's power was indeed extraordinary. The conversation between the two stunned the people around. Also, did Lu Ming agree? You're courting death. Kid, do you agree or not? Aokuin said coldly. Why wouldn't I agree when there's Jiao Dragon meat to eat? Lu Ming smiled. Alright, if that's the case, then you've agreed. Hee then die. Aokuin's laughter was full of killing intent. He did not expect that Lu Ming would really agree. He just casually mentioned the life-and-death duel. He originally thought that Lu Ming would definitely refuse in fear. He was just thinking that if Lu Ming did not agree, he would find a way to trouble Lu Ming after the exchange meeting. He did not expect that Lu Ming would actually agree, which made him overjoyed. Boom! He did not want to delay any longer. He took a big step forward and dashed toward Lu Ming like an awakened primordial beast. He threw a huge punch at Lu Ming. Bang! Similarly, Lu Ming took a step forward and threw a punch at the flood dragon. This shocked many people. Lu Ming dared to take Aokuin's fist with his fist. Everyone had witnessed how powerful Aokuin's fist was. Even a 6th-level spirit weapon would be shattered by him. Yet, Lu Ming actually wanted to fight Aokuin head-on with his fist. How was this possible? Wasn't he courting death? Many people had such thoughts in their minds. Even Wan Tingting, Qiao Xian, and Wang Haoxian could not help but stare at the fighting ring with a trace of worry in their eyes. On the contrary, Xian Yanqing was the calmest. She had known Lu Ming for so long and knew Lu Ming best. Since Lu Ming was so calm, it meant that he was confident. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, the two fists finally collided. Boom! A terrible roar sounded, and a terrible force swept out in all directions with the fists as the center, forming a fierce storm. Many people had to take action to break the storm. Dong! The fighting ring shook violently. Chapter 835. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. The person who was pushed back was Aokuin. Aokuin was pushed back 7 steps by Lu Ming. How was that possible? On the other hand, Lu Ming's body only swayed a little. Their fists collided and Lu Ming actually had the upper hand. Was Lu Ming still human? He was simply a ferocious beast in human form, as expected of a flood dragon with 50% true dragon bloodline. Powerful indeed. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with surprise. His cultivation was 1 level higher than Aokuin's. Moreover, he had used 80% of his true essence, coupled with the suppressing Hell Heaven skill, which was equivalent to an upper-grade god-level martial skill. It was extremely powerful and overbearing. Not to mention geniuses who were 1 level lower than him. Even Ao Qian and Gue Yu had been beaten to the point of vomiting blood. However, Aokuin was only pushed back 7 steps. This was the first time Lu Ming had encountered someone with a lower cultivation than him who could block his attack. Lu Ming was shocked. Aokuin was simply shocked. However, after the shock, he was filled with endless anger. He, Aokuin, was a proud son of heaven. His body had the bloodline of a true dragon with 50% concentration. His talent was heaven-defying. However, he was actually defeated by Lu Ming in a head-on clash. This was unforgivable. Roar! At that moment, Aokuin let out a dragon's roar. The muscles all over his body tightened and swelled up, supporting his red battle armor. His chi and blood surged to the sky, forming a true dragon that roared in the sky. Dong! He took a step forward and rushed towards Lu Ming. His huge fist was wrapped in a layer of red light and blasted towards Lu Ming. This punch was even more overbearing and shocking. Rumble! True essence rolled in Lu Ming's spiritual sea. The true essence in his body burst out with a tsunami-like sound. He used his fist to push the suppressing Hell Heaven skill and punched out. Boom! The 2 fists collided for the second time, stirring up gusts of wind. Tens of thousands of pairs of eyes were fixed on them again. This time, who would gain the upper hand? Amidst the howling winds, a silhouette stepped onto the battle stage and retreated. This time, it was Aokuin who retreated 9 steps. Aokuin was once again pushed back, and this time, he retreated even further. As for Lu Ming, his figure only swayed a little. Shock! Other than shock, there was still shock. Lu Ming had actually suppressed Aokuin. Within the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, the eyes of Di Feng and the other strongest people flashed. Although they had already heard that Lu Ming easily defeated the Heavenly Corpse Sex Gue Yu, they didn't think too highly of Lu Ming. His name wasn't even in the list of 10 in the 6th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. But now, they realized that they had greatly underestimated Lu Ming's strength. With Lu Ming's battle prowess, among the experts in the 6th layer of the spiritual ocean tier present, it would be hard to find someone stronger than Lu Ming. The Sky Prides of the Heavenly Corpse sect were also shocked. The most shocked ones were the Sky Prides of the Sky Demon Valley. They knew very well how strong Aokuin was. With 50% of the true dragon's bloodline concentration, if Aokuin grew up, he would definitely become one of the pillars of the Sky Demon Valley in the future. But now, he was suppressed by Lu Ming. Ah, Lu Ming, I want you dead. Aokuin roared as his body grew rapidly. Finally, he turned into a 500-meter-long crimson flood dragon. As the dragon roared, a giant claw as big as a mountain clawed at Lu Ming. The space kept shaking. Bang! Lu Ming's fist collided with the flood dragon's claw. His body trembled, and he took a few steps back. Aokuin, who had transformed into his original form, was stronger in all aspects. Aokuin's giant flood dragon body emitted a blood-red light, like the blood intent realm. This was the flood dragon's innate battle technique. He roared and pounced at Lu Ming again. Then I'll suppress you. Lu Ming's eyes flashed coldly. The suppressing prison steel bloodline appeared above his head, and 2 golden lights shone brightly. Many people were shocked. They were not shocked by how powerful Lu Ming's bloodline was. Instead, they were shocked by how weak his bloodline was. Today, Sky Prides had gathered and people with divine bloodlines had appeared frequently. Everyone was already numb. A 2nd-grade divine bloodline was nothing. Lu Ming's battle strength was too strong. Everyone thought that Lu Ming's bloodline should be a 4th-grade divine bloodline, or at least a 3rd-grade one. Who would have thought that Lu Ming's bloodline was only a 2nd-grade divine bloodline? It was unbelievable that a 2nd-grade divine bloodline could be so powerful. Bas! The suppressing prison's steel bloodline vibrated. Lu Ming turned into a ray of light and merged with the suppressing prison's steel bloodline. The suppressing prison's steel bloodline exuded a terrifying pressure. It was vast and heavy, as if it could suppress everything. Bang! The suppressing prison's steel shook and clashed with the flood dragon's claw. Aokun let out a long roar. His huge flood dragon body trembled like water waves, and he was forced to retreat. The suppressing prison's steel continued to vibrate. It flew up into the sky and rapidly grew in size. In the end, it became 10,000 meters tall, like an ancient mountain, and pressed down on Aokun. Aokun roared as he felt the terrifying pressure. His body was filled with blood chi. With a long roar, he soared into the sky. The dragon soared in the sky, wanting to compete with the suppressing prison steel. Boom! In the end, Aokun was like a worm being pressed down by the suppressing prison steel, and he was sent crashing into the battle stage. Sizzle! A strange sound rang out. It was like a toad being hit by a hammer. Following the strange sound, there was a shrill scream. The battle stage rumbled, and heaven and earth shook. Aokun screamed as blood splattered everywhere. He was almost squashed alive. Blood spurted out from his huge mouth. Bang! The suppressing prison steel shook and continued to attack. The sound of bones breaking rang out. Aokun vomited even more blood. The flood dragon's blood dyed the battle stage red. Aokun screamed. He was already half dead, lying motionless on the battle stage. Only his eyes were still filled with shock. The suppressing prison's steel shrank and turned back into Lu Ming's figure, standing on the flood dragon's head. Many people gasped in shock. He won. After Lu Ming used the bloodline fusion, he easily defeated Aokun and won. A powerful demon prodigy with a 50% true dragon bloodline concentration was defeated by Lu Ming just like that. It was shocking. Many people were guessing what Lu Ming's bloodline was. Suppressing prison steel? What bloodline was that? They had never heard of such a bloodline. It was too terrifying and powerful. Once he used the bloodline fusion, he easily suppressed Aokun. The divine steel became 10,000 meters tall and suppressed the flood dragon. It was like a legend. Now, I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming's cold voice sounded. The infinite dragon spear appeared in his hand, and the sharp tip of the spear was aimed at Aokun's forehead. No, no, help! Aokun roared. He had 50% true dragon bloodline, and he was a peerless genius of the monster race. He didn't want to die. He still had a great future. With his natural talent, it was a certainty that he would advance into the 8th rank and be comparable to the domain enlightened spirit god realm in the future, and it was even to the extent that he could charge into the exalt realm. He had another form of ambition, and that was to charge into the supreme position of the demon emperor and become an expert in the imperial Tao and reign supreme over the world. Chapter 836. This time, he came to Nine Dragons City to train himself and see if he could obtain any opportunities. He wasn't here to throw his life away. He had never expected to be in such a situation. He was terrified. Stop! A shrill cry was heard, spreading hundreds of miles away. The golden-robed young man in Sky Monster Valley spoke. Lu Ming, right? I advise you to stop. You win this battle, but you can't kill Aokun. The golden-robed young man's eyes seemed to be golden. He stood in the air with his hands behind his back, looking down at Lu Ming. He exuded a faint majesty, like an emperor looking down on his subjects. This young man was not to be underestimated. Even Shi Mo and Di Feng were very polite to him. The demon clan in Sky Monster Valley was unfathomable, and the talents of the younger generation were also very frightening. This was because the demon clan in Sky Monster Valley was not on the list of top 1,000 talents. No one knew how many powerful descendants there were in Sky Monster Valley and how strong their bloodline was. This golden-robed young man was the same. He gave off an unfathomable feeling. Ordinary people would be more or less afraid of him. But Lu Ming did not buy it. He glanced at the golden-robed young man and said, I can't kill him? Ridiculous. Just now, Aokun and I agreed to a life-and-death duel. In a life-and-death duel, one side must die. The loser will die. Don't you understand this? The golden-robed young man's eyes shone brighter, and his body emitted a faint golden light. He said coldly, I advise you to let Aokun go. He is a rare talent of the demon clan and the son of a big shot in the flood dragon clan. If you kill him, even if you hide in Nine Dragon City, with your talent, you will definitely participate in the Battle of Providence. Then, in the Battle of Providence, You will definitely die if you meet someone from the demon clan. This was a blatant threat. In the heavenly demon race, there were many geniuses and they weren't any weaker than the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. In this generation, there were even more geniuses. There were all kinds of descendants with a high concentration of bloodline. If they were to target someone in the battle of fate, everyone would be wary. Hee hee, after losing, you use your backer to threaten me. What a joke. Lu Ming's indifferent voice drifted out as he continued. I just want to ask, if I lose this battle, will Aokuin show mercy? Heavenly Monster Tribe quieted down. The demonic beast race had always been tyrannical. If Lu Ming was defeated, how could Aokuin spare Lu Ming? Your identities are different. After a moment of silence, the golden-robed young man spoke. Bullshit. Lu Ming only replied with a single word. Boom. His aura erupted as he raised the infinite dragon spear high into the air and viciously stabbed it towards Aokuin's forehead. No! Aokuin roared, his huge body trying to struggle. Puff! In the next moment, the infinity dragon spear pierced through Aokuin's forehead. The entire infinity dragon spear went in, and the powerful spear light pierced through Aokuin's huge head. The spear pierced through Aokuin's head. Aokuin roared and his eyes flashed with unwillingness. His huge dragon body struggled for a while and then stopped moving. Aokuin was dead. Damn it! You're courting death. In the Heavenly Monster Valley, there were several angry roars. Whoosh! Whoosh! 3 figures flashed and appeared around Lu Ming. Their violent aura shrouded Lu Ming. Peak of the 7th tier of the Spirit Sea tier. These 3 figures were all demon race prodigies equivalent to the 7th tier of the Spirit Sea tier. Extremely powerful. In the sky, the golden-robed young man did not move, but the murderous intent on his body was extremely dense and undisguised. The people of the Heavenly Corpse sect looked on coldly with anticipation in their eyes. They hoped that more of the geniuses of the Heavenly Monster Valley and the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace would die. In that case, it would definitely be beneficial for the Heavenly Corpse sect. Brother Peng, this is too much. Di Feng frowned and said. Lu Ming was a genius of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace after all. He could not sit back and do nothing. That's right. A battle of life and death. Lu Ming killing Aokuin is normal. What do you mean by sending out a few geniuses of the 7th level of the spiritual sea realm? Do you think that there is no one in the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace? Brothers, let's go. Fatty took the opportunity to shout, wanting to encourage the others to help Lu Ming. Fatty, you are right. Lu Ming is in the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm. If you are capable, send out a 6th level spiritual sea realm expert to fight him. Xian Yanqing echoed Fatty's words. That's right. If you are capable, fight him at the same level. Ruan Tingting and the others chimed in. It's okay. Lu Ming waved his hand, and Fatty and the others quieted down. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with battle intent. He glanced at the 3 of them and said, if you want to fight, then let's fight. So what if you are 1 level higher? So what if you are 1 level higher? His voice rumbled and spread throughout the place, filled with heroic spirit. If Aokuin dared to fight an expert 1 level higher, how could Lu Ming not dare to do so? Was it too little for Lu Ming to fight above his level? Even if the other party was an extremely powerful genius, so what? Fine, you are courting death. Don't move, I will kill him. A blue-robed youth stepped out, with traces of lightning in his eyes. Wang. The prison-suppressing steel bloodline reappeared, and the battle intent in Lu Ming's eyes explained everything. Dang! The blue-robed youth turned into a large bird, spreading its wings over 30 meters wide. His entire body was filled with dense lightning. This is a lightning bird, possessing the bloodline of the divine beast Thunderbird. This lightning bird already possesses 30% concentration of bloodline power. Exclamations came from all around. Although this lightning bird's bloodline concentration was inferior to Aokuin's, its cultivation reached the peak of the 7th level spiritual sea realm, and its battle prowess was much stronger than Aokuin's. The lightning bird's speed was shockingly fast, like a bolt of lightning flashing past. Endless lightning spread towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming used bloodline fusion and turned into the prison-suppressing steel, colliding with the lightning bird. Boom! The lightning bird was sent flying, retreating far away. However, the prison-suppressing steel also trembled slightly this time. Swish! Then, the prison-suppressing steel enlarged rapidly, continuing to suppress the lightning bird. In the process, A terrifying devouring power burst out from the prison-suppressing steel, covering the lightning bird's cage. Ah! What's going on? The lightning bird exclaimed. He felt that the blood in his body was boiling, and under the influence of the devouring power, his strength was greatly weakened. Pang! The prison-suppressing steel smashed heavily on the lightning bird. The lightning on his body was dispersed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood filled with lightning. His huge body fell down and smashed into the fighting ring. Everyone was once again dumbfounded. The lightning bird that reached the peak of the 7th level spiritual sea realm was defeated. It was a clean defeat in just a few moves. 2 huge demonic beasts lay on the huge fighting ring. The lightning bird chirped and transformed into its human form. It retreated hurriedly, looking at Lu Ming in horror. The prison-suppressing steel shrunk and turned into Lu Ming's appearance. Next, who will fight me? Chapter 837. The 2 prodigies of the demon race had ugly expressions on their faces. Their combat strength was only on par with the lightning bird. Even the lightning bird had been defeated, so what could they do? The golden-robed youth in the sky had an ugly expression on his face. On the other hand, Fatty and the others cheered. Haha, it's really lively here today. At this moment, a faint voice came from the sky far away. The voice clearly came from afar, but it sounded like it was right beside everyone's ears. Xian Yanqing's expression changed drastically when he heard the voice. Disbelief filled his eyes. Everyone looked toward the source of the voice. There was a total of 5 people walking over in the sky. Among the 5, there were 3 youths. There were 2 men and 1 woman. Among the 3 youths, a young man in a purple gold robe was obviously the leader. The other man and woman stood behind the young man in the purple gold robe. Beside the young man in the purple gold robe, there were 2 old men. The 2 old men gave off the feeling that they were ordinary people. They were like 2 ordinary old men who didn't know martial arts. There was no aura coming from their bodies. They were naturally not ordinary people. It was just that their cultivation was too high, so they gave off an illusion. The 2 old men chatted and laughed as they looked down. One of the old men seemed to be introducing something to the other old man. That seems to be the Black Wind Venerable. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "What? The Black Wind Venerable? The Black Wind Venerable of the Imperial Sky Guard? That's him. I've seen him once. It's really the Black Wind Venerable." As soon as this was said, it caused even more exclamations. Countless gazes were cast toward one of the black-robed old men. Unvenerable. It's actually Unvenerable. Unvenerable was a title for a spiritual god realm expert. In other words, this black-robed old man was a peerless spiritual god realm expert. In the divine wilderness continent, martial emperors were the strongest. Martial emperors could dominate the world. On the other hand, the domain enlightened spirit god realm was the realm that was closest to the martial monarch realm. Usually, it was rare to see such a person. However, one had appeared at this moment. Then who were the others? They actually needed Unvenerable to accompany them. The arrival of the Black Wind Venerable eased the tense atmosphere on the battle stage. Greetings to the Black Wind Venerable. The many sky prides of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace stood up and paid their respects. There's no need to be so courteous. There's a distinguished guest here today. I heard that an exchange meeting is being held here, so I brought him here to take a look. Black Wind Venerable said with a smile. Everyone was shocked. Honored guest? Who could be called a distinguished guest by Black Wind Venerable? The geniuses of the Heavenly Corpse sect and the Sky Demon Valley, the 4 overlords of the Eastern Wilderness, were all here. Naturally, they couldn't be from those 2 forces. Talisman Puppet Sect? Impossible. The Talisman Puppet Sect has declined now, and it utterly doesn't have the qualifications to be addressed as an honored guest by Exalt Dark Wind. Other than these 3 forces, who else in the Eastern Wilderness was qualified to be called a guest by the Black Wind Venerable? They are from the Central Continent. Black Wind Venerable said with a smile. What? Everyone was shocked, including the geniuses of the Heavenly Corpse sect and the Sky Demon Valley. The Divine Wilderness was divided into 5 huge regions. Central Continent, Eastern Wilderness, Southern Underworld, Western Desert, and Northern Plains. Since ancient times, the Central Continent had been the most prosperous and powerful among the 5 major regions. The Central Continent had a vast territory and was full of outstanding people. It had always been filled with geniuses and experts. It was the top of the 5 major regions. These people were actually from the Central Continent. These people are from the Central Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty. This is a prince from the Ancient Saint Dynasty. The Black Wind Venerable threw out a bombshell. The crowd was in an uproar. Those who knew the distribution of the forces in the Central Continent were even more shocked. The Central Continent was different from the Eastern Wilderness. The 4 overlords ruled the region. The Ancient Saint Dynasty of the Central Continent had been passed down for countless years. It had ruled over the entire Central Continent, and the entire Central Continent was under its control. It was said that the Heavenly Secret Chamber of Commerce had been established by the Ancient Saint Dynasty of the Central Continent. Although some people had heard that the situation in the Central Continent had changed and the imperial family had weakened, the Ancient Saint Dynasty was still the most powerful force. The young man in the purple and gold robe was a prince from the Ancient Saint Dynasty of the Central Continent. No wonder the Black Wind Venerable addressed him as an honored guest. In the arena, Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Liao Cong had once said that Xian Yanqing was from the Central Continent. However, when Lu Ming asked later, Xian Yanqing did not elaborate. The young man in the purple robe stepped forward and cupped his fists. I am Xie Zhen. I heard that the Eastern Wilderness geniuses were gathered here today, so I came to take a look. I hope I didn't disturb you. Your Highness is too polite. I am Di Feng. Di Feng stepped forward and cupped his fists. Brother Di, nice to meet you. Xie Zhen smiled and bowed. Then, Mo and the young man in the golden robe from the Heavenly Monster Tribe greeted Xie Zhen. The Ancient Saint Dynasty of the Central Continent was not to be underestimated. They naturally wanted to build a good relationship with it. Although the Eastern Wilderness was huge and had hundreds of regions, the Eastern Wilderness was extremely vast. However, those who had reached the level of Di Feng, Mo, and the young man in the golden robe had a bright future. If they reached a certain level, they would sooner or later come into contact with the top geniuses from other regions. Now that they could build a good relationship with a prince from the Ancient Saint Dynasty of the Central Continent, they would not miss it. Lu Ming, I have to go. Let's leave this place together. At that moment, Xian Yanqing's voice sounded in Lu Ming's ears. His voice was filled with anxiety. Lu Ming turned his head and saw Xian Yanqing hiding in the crowd. His eyes were filled with anxiety. What's going on? Lu Ming was stunned and sent a message to Xian Yanqing. Let's go. There's no time to explain. Xian Yanqing was in the crowd. He kept retreating as if he wanted to leave this place quietly. At that moment, Xie Zhen suddenly frowned in the sky. Then, his eyes lit up and he turned around. 2 beams of light shot out from his eyes as he looked in Xian Yanqing's direction. Haha, little sister, why didn't you greet me when you saw me? Are you trying to leave quietly? Xie Zhen laughed. In a flash, he appeared above Xian Yanqing's head. Xian Yanqing's face turned pale immediately. One of the old men, as well as the 2 young men behind Xie Zhen, also looked at Xian Yanqing with sharp gazes. Everyone in the surroundings was taken aback, revealing a puzzled expression. Xie Zhen called her little sister? Could Xie Zhen's sister be here? Since when did Xie Zhen's sister mingle with the crowd? Everyone followed Xie Zhen's gaze and looked at Xian Yanqing. It's her. At that moment, many people's eyes lit up. It's her. The girl who has been walking with Lu Ming is Xie Zhen's sister? Doesn't that mean she's the princess of the Central Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty? Many people were discussing in shock. Ruan Tingting, Qiao Xian, Fatty, and the rest looked at Xian Yanqing in shock. Xian Yanqing has such an identity? Lu Ming was also stunned. Although he had always thought that Xian Yanqing's identity was mysterious, he did not expect her to be the princess of the Central Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty. Chapter 838. There were many things that he understood in an instant, but there were also many more questions. No wonder Xian Yanqing did not tell him the truth. No wonder Xian Yanqing was so talented, but he was not a disciple of any force in the Eastern Barren Territory. No wonder Liao Cong could see through him at first glance. However, if Xian Yanqing had such a high status, why did he travel such a long distance to the Eastern Barren Territory, and even to the rural corner of the Burning Sun Empire? What was the purpose of all this? Xian Yanqing looked at Xie Zhen, who was in the sky. His face was pale, and there was a hint of bitterness in his expression. He said, "You are here to look for me?" Hey, you're half right. We're here because our father asked us to form an alliance with the big forces in the East Continent and bring you back. We thought we'd have to go through a lot of trouble to ask the big forces for help in the investigation. We didn't expect to meet you here. You saved us a lot of trouble. Xueqi chuckled. I will not go back. Xian Yanqing said calmly. Xueqi's eyes turned cold. He said, I know you will say that, but you better not reject us. Seal your cultivation and come with us. Don't make things difficult for me. Xueqi, stop calling me your brother. You are not my brother, and you are not fit to be my brother. Go back with you and continue to be at your mercy? Become your tool and be bullied by you? Go back and tell Xueqi that he is not fit to be my father. I would rather die than go back. Xian Yanqing gritted his teeth and said loudly. How dare you? How dare you call His Majesty by his name? You are courting death. Do you really think you are a princess? The two young men and the old man shouted at the same time. They stared at Xian Yanqing with unfriendly eyes. Many people around them looked at the situation. Something is not right. Is Xian Yanqing really Xueqi's sister, the princess of the Central Continent ancient Saint dynasty? Why did even a few servants dare to scold her? Xueqi's face turned completely dark as he said coldly, You're getting bolder and bolder. You're the son of a lowly servant, and a mutant at that. If it weren't for Imperial Father's benevolence, I would have slaughtered you and fed you to the dogs. Xueqi, you dare to insult my mother, I will kill you sooner or later. Xian Yanqing's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. Insult your mother? Just a lowly servant. How can she have the qualifications to let this prince humiliate her? Xueqi said in a cold voice. You're courting death. Xian Yanqing roared, and his destructive power erupted. A beautiful arm slammed toward Xueqi. A cold smile appeared on Xian Yanqing's face. His body emitted a dazzling white light that was incomparably holy. He struck out with his palm, and a huge palm formed from white light completely destroyed Xian Yanqing's attack. Xian Yanqing's body trembled as she retreated, and she spurted out a mouthful of blood. Despicable mutant, how dare you resist? This time, no matter what, you have to go back. Father was too merciful in the past. This time, I will report to Father and send you to the underworld demon region. You will suffer the pain of being burned by the demon flames. Let's see if you still dare to come out and disgrace the Xie clan. Xueqi's eyes were cold, and there was even a hint of disgust in them. It didn't seem like he was looking at a relative, but rather like a high and mighty prince looking at a beggar. He walked out slowly, and his body emitted a pure white light, making him look even more holy. A strong pressure enveloped Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing retreated, and her face turned even paler. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Xian Yanqing, and a strong aura dispersed Xueqi's terrifying pressure. Everyone's gaze shifted. Unknowingly, Lu Ming had already appeared in front of Xian Yanqing. Xueqi's face darkened, and he looked at Lu Ming and said, Brat, who do you think you are? How dare you stop me? Get out of my way. Lu Ming's posture was ramrod straight, as though he was sitting on a mountain. He stood there, emitting a powerful aura. There was a glint in his eyes as he looked directly at Xueqi. I don't care who you are or whether you are Xiaoqing's relative. As long as you dare to hurt her, you are my enemy. Now, since Xiaoqing is unwilling to go with you, then get out of my way. Lu Ming's voice wasn't loud, but it was loud and clear. Especially the last sentence. Then get out of my way. It made everyone's heart beat violently. Lu Ming dared to ask Xueqi to get out of my way, to ask a prince of the Central Continent ancient Saint dynasty to get out of my way? How bold of him. Xueqi was also slightly taken aback. Only after a while did he react. His eyes were filled with astonishing killing intent, as if he was a high and mighty emperor looking down on his subjects. A cold and indifferent voice sounded out. Lowly ant, you actually dare to speak to me in such a manner. When you say such words, no one in this world will be able to save you. Today, I will chop you into 8 pieces and feed them to the dogs. Bang! Xueqi's body emitted a blinding white light, like a white sun. A battle sword formed by the white light tore through the sky and slashed at Lu Ming. Bang! Lu Ming took a step forward and executed the heavenly art of suppressing hell, and lashed out with his palm. The heavens and earth trembled violently, and the blinding white light scattered in all directions, causing the others to close their eyes. As the white light dissipated, Lu Ming's body shuddered slightly, and he took 3 steps back. Xueqi's eyes flickered coldly, as if he was surprised that Lu Ming was able to resist his attack. Lu Ming, leave quickly. This has nothing to do with you. Xian Yanqing, who was behind Lu Ming, shouted anxiously. Lu Ming turned around and smiled at Xian Yanqing, saying, "What nonsense are you saying? Your matter is my matter." Xian Yanqing's body shuddered, and there seemed to be tears in her eyes. She bit her red lips and looked at Lu Ming in a daze. For a moment, she seemed to be in a daze, unable to say a word. Lu Ming smiled and faced Xiezhen again. "So, you have a man outside. Kid, your talent is not bad. It seems like you are a genius of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. However, no matter which faction you are from, you will die today." After Xiezhen spoke, he turned to Di Feng and said, "Brother Di, I want to kill this person today. You won't interfere, right?" Di Feng's eyes flickered as he glanced at Lu Ming and said, "I am not familiar with this person. He is not a core member of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. I will leave him to the prince." "Haha, that's great. Thank you, Brother Di." Xiezhen burst out laughing. "Nian Chao, who do you think you are? Why should my brother be punished by you?" The fatty was not happy. With a flicker, he came to Lu Ming's side. Ruan Tingting and Qiao Xian also came to Lu Ming's side. Wang Haoxian's eyes flickered. In the end, he clenched his teeth and came to Lu Ming's side. "This has nothing to do with you. Leave this place first," Lu Ming said to the fatty and the rest. This matter was related to the Middle Continent ancient sacred dynasty. Lu Ming did not want to implicate the fatty and the rest. "Nian Chao, Lu Ming, what is the meaning of this? You don't treat me as a friend? Or do you think my cultivation is too weak to help?" Chapter 839. Ruan Tingting and Qiao Xian's eyes were firm. Although their cultivation was low, they chose to advance and retreat with Lu Ming. Looking at the fatty, Ruan Tingting, and the others, Lu Ming felt warmth in his heart. Xian Yanqing was the same. She had always been eccentric, but her eyes were a little red. Good, a bunch of lowly ants. How dare you stop me? Today, I'll kill all of you." Xiezhen's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. "Eighth Prince, you don't need to kill them. Leave it to us." With a flash, the man and woman who came with Xiezhen appeared beside Xiezhen, and the woman said, "All right, you guys do it. But I've changed my mind. Don't kill them, but cripple their cultivation first. I'll bring them back to the central continent and sell them to the barbarian tribe as slaves." Xiezhen said coldly. "Yes." The man and woman answered. Xiezhen retreated. Then, two sword cries rang out. One black and one white. Two sword lights shrouded Lu Ming. "Fatty, you guys back off." Lu Ming let out a long howl. He took a step forward and threw two consecutive palms. With two booming sounds, the sword lights collapsed. The man and woman's faces changed, and with a shout, their sword chi skyrocketed. Both of them were experts at the peak of the 6th layer of the spiritual sea realm, and awakened the 3rd level of the divine rank bloodline. Unfortunately, they were a step too late and didn't see the power of Lu Ming's attack. They didn't know how terrifying Lu Ming was. Lu Ming was only at the 6th layer of the spiritual sea realm. They thought that with the two of them working together, it would be more than enough to take down Lu Ming. But in the next moment, they found that they were wrong. Lu Ming's battle prowess was simply terrifying. Pang, pang. Lu Ming stepped out, his palms striking out continuously. The black and white sword lights shattered, and the two retreated quickly. "Damn it, kill!" The two roared angrily, and two giant swords, one black and one white, appeared above their heads. 3 golden chakras circled around the two giant swords. Their bodies merged with the giant swords, and sword cries shook the sky. Shwa! Whoosh! The giant black and white sword slashed violently at Lu Ming with astonishing power. Roar! At this moment, the faint roar of a dragon could be heard from Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's aura surged, and scales appeared on his skin. A berserk aura erupted from him, making him look like a ferocious beast. Scales also appeared on Lu Ming's hands. Even Lu Ming's fingernails became very long, like dragon claws. Whoosh! Whoosh! His hands turned into claws and violently clawed at the two black and white giant swords. Amidst the whistling of the sword chi, Lu Ming firmly grasped the blades of the two giant swords. The two giant swords shook violently, but for a moment, they could not fly out of his hands. Break! Lu Ming roared and exerted force with his claws. Bam! Bam! The black and white giant swords were crushed by Lu Ming, and they reverted back to their human forms. The two figures of a man and a woman were sent flying far away. They fell heavily on the ground and vomited large mouthfuls of blood. At this moment, countless people opened their eyes wide, looking at Lu Ming and the scales on Lu Ming's body. What's going on? What's up with Lu Ming's scales? It's like a demon. Could it be that he's not a human, but a demon? That's impossible. The cultivation technique that he cultivates is the state of heaven and earth. He's definitely a human. That should be a secret technique. There are many mysterious secret techniques in heaven and earth that can allow a human to transform into a beast. There are even some that can completely transform into a beast. That's right. It should be a secret technique. What a terrifying secret technique. Lu Ming didn't use it just now. It turns out that Lu Ming still has a trump card. The supreme talents from Emperor Sky Deity Palace, Sky Corp Sect, and Sky Demon Valley opened their eyes wide. It turned out that Lu Ming hadn't used his full strength in the previous battle against the supreme talent from Sky Demon Valley. How strong was Lu Ming, a supreme talent who had awakened a level 2 divine grade bloodline, exactly? Xueqi's eyes turned even colder. He glanced at the man and woman and scolded. What a bunch of trash. I have to deal with them personally. Having said that, Xueqi took another step forward, slowly walking towards Lu Ming. With every step he took, the aura on his body grew stronger. In the distance, the Black Wind Reverend and the old man from the Central Region Ancient Saint Dynasty watched quietly. They didn't make a sound, nor did they make a move to stop Xueqi. Lu Ming, be careful. He has awakened a level 5 divine grade bloodline. Xian Yanqing reminded Xueqi softly. Bitch, so what if I remind you? Xueqi scolded coldly. A burly man in golden armor appeared above his head. This burly man in golden armor was 100 meters tall, like a deity. He held a golden spear in his hand. There were 5 golden chakras around the burly man in golden armor, which were extremely dazzling. Level 5 divine grade bloodline. Kill. The burly man in golden armor held the long spear in his hand and smashed it down towards Lu Ming from above. Before the long spear arrived, the terrifying pressure was completely unleashed. Xueqi's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 7th level of the spiritual sea realm. With such cultivation, he had fused with a level 5 divine grade bloodline. It was too powerful and terrifying. One could imagine how terrifying Ao Kuan's battle strength was when he was only at the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm. Xueqi would definitely not be weaker than Ao Kuan in a battle of the same level. It could be seen how terrifying his battle strength was. Roar! At this moment, another dragon roar sounded from Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming had also unleashed the second dragon force. The 2 dragon forces exploded together, and the power was multiplied. Pang! Lu Ming stomped his foot and soared into the sky. He used the suppressing hell heaven skill and punched the huge golden spear. Dang! The terrifying vibration formed a sound wave that spread out like a storm. Some of the weaker cultivators were shocked, and their eardrums were almost shattered. They all used their martial arts to resist. Qiao Xian's body trembled, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. The fatty on the side quickly supported Qiao Xian, and his true yuan spread out to help Qiao Xian block the terrifying sound wave. In the sky, the huge spear vibrated and buzzed. The burly man in golden armor's huge body actually trembled and took a step back. Boom! This step in the air caused the space to ripple like water. The air was compressed into liquid and blasted on the battle stage below, causing it to shake violently. And Lu Ming's body only took a step back. Damn it, Lo Lian, die! Xueqi roared angrily after using bloodline fusion and was actually pushed back by Lu Ming's punch. Fist of the suppressing devil. The burly man in golden armor roared. The spear in his hand disappeared, and his huge fist punched towards Lu Ming. Wang! The suppressing hell steel appeared above Lu Ming's head. Lu Ming used bloodline fusion and fused his body with the steel. The moment they fused, the 2 dragon forces also fused with the steel, causing it to be even stronger than before. Suppressing hell heaven skill. The suppressing hell steel enlarged and suppressed the burly man in golden armor. At the same time, the burly man in golden armor's terrifying fist light blasted towards the steel. Boom! 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 Terrifying vibrations exploded in the sky. Even from thousands of miles away, the shocking fluctuations could be heard. Dozens of explosions rang out in succession. Chapter 840. Suppress. Be it demon, deity, ghost, or monster, suppress them all. A loud voice came from the suppressing prison steel. The suppressing prison steel became 10,000 meters tall and pressed down on Xueqi. Xueqi, who was in the form of a man in golden armor, roared and punched out. However, in the next instant, his eyes were filled with fear. The suppressing prison steel pressed down and the fist radiance collapsed. The suppressing prison steel went for the head of the man in golden armor. Hold on! The man in golden armor roared and dodged the attack. He used his shoulder to block the suppressing prison steel and his hands to support himself. But the suppressing prison steel could suppress everything. It was as heavy as an ancient mountain, and it was not something that the man in golden armor could withstand. Kneel down! Lu Ming's voice came from the suppressing prison steel. Boom! The man in golden armor could not withstand it and his body fell off the fighting ring. Then, his body trembled and he knelt down. Ah! The man in golden armor roared in anger. He, the prince of the Middle Continent ancient sage dynasty, was actually suppressed by Lu Ming in public and forced to kneel on the fighting ring. This was a great humiliation. I want you to die. I want you to die. Xueqi's voice came out. Then I'll kill you now. Lu Ming's voice could be heard. The prison-suppressing monument shone and shook slightly. The burly man in golden armor roared furiously and lay down on the ground. His body shrank rapidly and turned into Xueqi's appearance. He looked at the prison-suppressing monument above his head in horror and anger. Boom! The suppressing prison steel pressed down on Xueqi. How dare you! At this moment, a voice came out and rumbled in the area. It was the old man who stood beside the black-winged venerable. At that moment, he let out a cold snort, extended a skinny hand, and pointed forward. A huge finger that looked like the finger of a deity appeared out of thin air and pointed at the suppressing prison steel. At this moment, Lu Ming felt an unbelievably strong force shrouding him. He was powerless in front of this force. Bam! The finger touched the suppressing prison steel. Instantly, the suppressing prison steel exploded and turned back into Lu Ming's body. He flew out like a cannonball and hit the ground 10 miles away. Boom! Lu Ming lay in the middle of the ground, coughing up mouthfuls of blood. He felt as if all the bones in his body had been broken, and he was in excruciating pain. That old man was too formidable, peerless, and unfathomable. It was very likely that he was a domain-enlightened spirit god just like Exalt Black Wind. Lu Ming! Xian Yanqing let out a delicate cry and charged toward Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, she appeared beside Lu Ming and helped Lu Ming up. Tears began to fall from her eyes. Lu Ming, are you okay? Xian Yanqing supported Lu Ming and continuously poured his true essence into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. He smiled and said, "Idiot, why are you crying? I'm fine." Lu Ming! At this moment, Fatty and the others charged over as well. Damn it! A dignified Exalt Realm expert actually made a move against you. If worse comes to worst, I'll get that old bastard of mine to come over and slap him to death. Fatty roared furiously. Fatty, don't interfere in this matter. Quickly leave this place, said Lu Ming. Their opponents were too strong. They had an Exalt Realm expert, and their current cultivations were no different than ants in the eyes of an Exalt Realm expert. If they resisted, then all of them would die. Lu Ming absolutely didn't want to implicate Fatty and the others. Lu Ming, I'll go back with them. Recuperate properly and stop fighting. Xian Yanqing's tears flowed incessantly as she spoke. No. Little Qing, I can sense that you'll definitely suffer if you go back. Even if I have to fight with my life on the line, I don't want you to go back and suffer. Lu Ming struggled with the intention of getting up. Xueqi and the others didn't treat Xian Yanqing like a family member at all. They treated him like an enemy or even a servant. Even a few servants dared to scold Xian Yanqing. It was obvious that Xian Yanqing wouldn't have a good time when he went back. Lu Ming wouldn't stop them if they were normal family members. However, it was obvious that they weren't normal family members. Although Lu Ming didn't know the inside story, Xian Yanqing's words of, "I'd rather die than go back," explained everything. He would rather die than return. In Xian Yanqing's heart, returning was worse than death. Swoosh! The old man took a step forward and appeared above Lu Ming and the others. Kill them. I want all of them dead. Xueqi screamed hysterically. He was a lofty prince of the eastern continent's ancient Saint dynasty, yet he'd actually been suppressed by Lu Ming and forced to kneel on the spot. How humiliating was that? He was filled with hatred. The old man frowned slightly, and then he looked at Xueqi and said, 16th princess, please come back with me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. As an exalt at the domain enlightened spirit god realm, it was truly embarrassing for the old man to make a move against a few juniors. So he hadn't used much strength against Lu Ming at all, and he'd only stopped Lu Ming from killing Xueqi. If he'd really used some strength, then Lu Ming would have died even if he had 10 lives. The gap between the Sea of Soul realm and the domain enlightened spirit god realm was too huge. Alright, Exalt Guardian, I'll go back with you, but you have to let Lu Ming and the others go. Xueqi spoke. No, that bastard must die. Xueqi stared at Lu Ming with killing intent as he shouted. If you want to kill him, then I'd rather die than return. At most, you can bring my corpse back. With a move of his hand, a short sword appeared in Xueqi's hand, and he pressed it against his chest with a resolute expression. Lil Qing, don't. Lu Ming was shocked and shouted. Miss Xueqi. Fatty and the others were shocked as well. Bitch, how dare you threaten me? Xueqi roared. The Exalt Guardian frowned even more. No matter what, I'm still Xueqi's daughter. If you bring my corpse back, I believe Xueqi won't be happy. Xueqi's gaze was firm as he stared at the old man and Xueqi in the air. Xueqi's face stiffened. He wasn't very outstanding among the princes. If he really brought Xueqi's corpse back, then his position in his father's heart would probably be slightly affected. Even if it was just a little bit, it was still a big deal to him. The Exalt Guardian pondered for a moment and said, All right, I promise you. It doesn't matter whether you kill them or not. Thank you. Then, Xueqi's gaze turned to Xueqi. Xueqi gritted his teeth and finally said, All right, I also promise to let that bastard go. But you have to promise to seal your cultivation and go back with us obediently. All right, I'll do as I say. After Xueqi finished speaking, he looked at Lu Ming with reluctance in his eyes. Fool, I'm leaving. Xueqi smiled with a trace of sadness, as beautiful as a summer flower. Lil Qing. Lu Ming exclaimed softly and clenched his fists. In the end, he was still powerless to keep Xueqi and needed Xueqi to save his life. At this moment, he hated his own powerlessness and his lack of strength. If he had the strength to dominate the world, how could Xueqi and the others take Xueqi away? How could he let Xueqi do something that she didn't want to do? Chapter 841. He seemed to have made rapid progress recently, competing with the Eastern Wilderness geniuses, but that was only among the younger generation. Moreover, even among the younger generation, he might not be a match for Di Feng, Mo, and the others. Moreover, there were still the top 100 geniuses on the list of top 1,000 talents ahead of him. This was only among the younger generation. Compared to the ancient families, or even the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, the Heavenly Corpse sect, and the Middle Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty, he was still far behind. In the face of such forces, he seemed so powerless. Power, power. Lu Ming kept growling in his heart. 16th princess, I've already agreed. Come with me now. The guardian said. Xueqi's body trembled. She suddenly bent down and pressed her red lips on Lu Ming's. At this moment, their lips were touching, as if they had become one. Bitch. Xueqi's eyes flashed coldly as he growled. But at this moment, no one paid attention to Xueqi. Everyone's eyes were focused on Lu Ming and Xueqi. After a long while, their lips parted. 2 drops of tears fell on Lu Ming's face. Lu Ming, I'll wait for you. No matter how much pain I suffer, I won't die. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for the day you rule the world. When you rule the world, we'll hold hands and never be separated. Her voice echoed in Lu Ming's ears. Xueqi had already floated away and landed beside the guardian. Shaoqing. Lu Ming felt as if a large stone was stuck in his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. Miss Xueqi. Ruan Tingting and Xiao Xian's eyes glistened with tears. Wang Haoxian also looked at Lu Ming and Xueqi with a complicated expression. Ah, damn it, I'm going to call that old bastard here. The fat man growled, his fat body trembling. Rule the world? What a joke. How dare an ant try to defy the heavens? What a dream. Guardian, let's go. Xueqi sneered. He came to the Guardian and said, "Bitch, alien, this time when we go back, I'll make you go to the 9th underworld. Just you wait." The protector waved his hand and took Xueqi, the man, and the woman. They turned into a ray of light and disappeared. Shaoqing. Lu Ming looked in the direction where Xueqi had left. "Let's leave," the fat man said. That was because there were people from the heavenly monster valley looking at them with unfriendly gazes. Lu Ming's combat power was too terrifying. Even Xueqi, the prince of the Middle Continent ancient saint dynasty, who had awakened a 5th-level divine bloodline and whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 7th level of the spirit sea realm, was suppressed by Lu Ming. He was too powerful. Now that Lu Ming was seriously injured, they had other thoughts. "Let's go." The fat man wrapped Lu Ming with his true origin and left in a flash. Ruan Tingting and the rest followed behind. The eyes of the people from the Sky Demon Valley flashed, but they did not chase after them. After all, this was the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, not the Sky Demon Valley. If they chased after the geniuses of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace openly, would the people of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace allow it? Otherwise, they would lose all their face. What an interesting guy. The Black Wind Venerable smiled and said, "You guys, continue the competition. I'm leaving." A black wind blew past, and the Black Wind Venerable disappeared. Now that Aokuin is dead and Lu Ming has retreated with serious injuries, why don't we start the competition from the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm? Di Feng looked in the direction where Lu Ming and the rest left, then looked at Shurimo and the golden-robed youth. "I have no objections," Shurimo said. "Okay." The golden-robed youth could only nod. The competition continued, but Lu Ming and the rest had nothing to do. A million miles away, in a hidden valley, Lu Ming sat cross-legged, trying his best to heal his injuries. Previously, he was hit by the Honorable Guardian of the Middle Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty. Although the Honorable Guardian did not use much strength, he was still severely injured, and his bones were broken into a few hundred pieces. Fortunately, it was only a physical injury, and his internal organs were only slightly injured. With Lu Ming's current physical strength and cultivation, he could recover quickly. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. Lu Ming's injuries were healed, and he was in peak condition. Wang Haoxian's figure flickered, and she appeared beside Lu Ming. "How's the investigation?" Lu Ming opened his eyes and looked at Wang Haoxian. 2 days ago, Lu Ming asked Wang Haoxian to investigate where Xueqi and the rest were, and whether they were still in 9 Dragon City. Previously, Xueqi had said that they came to Eastern Wilderness to form an alliance with a few major forces. Forming an alliance was a big deal, and Lu Ming guessed that Xueqi and the rest would not leave so soon. Therefore, he sent Wang Haoxian to investigate. The people from Middle Continent are still there, and they are staying in the Ocean Wave Ancient Garden in another dragon vein. Wang Haoxian told him the truth. "Ocean Wave Ancient Garden? I know." Lu Ming nodded and closed his eyes again. Not far away, Fatty, Ruan Tingting, and Chao Xian were discussing something. Why do you think Lu Ming sent Wang Haoxian to find out where the people from Middle Continent are staying? Is he trying to save Miss Nianqing? With Lu Ming's cultivation, he will definitely die if he goes there. Ruan Tingting whispered. "That's right. They have honorables, and he will definitely die if he goes there. We still have to keep an eye on Lu Ming, and don't let him do anything rash." Fatty nodded. Another day passed. Lu Ming sat still. At this moment, the image of Xueqi kept flashing in his mind. Back then, when they met for the first time in the ancestral remains of the Dongyi tribe in the Burning Sun Empire, they fought fiercely in the beginning. At that time, Xueqi suffered a great loss. Later on, the two of them met again in the Scorching Sun Imperial capital. After that, the two of them experienced a lot together. The words, "I will trample you under my feet," echoed in Lu Ming's ears from time to time. After going through so much together, Xueqi's image had been deeply engraved in his heart. Similarly, his image was deeply engraved in Xueqi's heart, and it was difficult to erase it. "When you rule the world, you and I will hold hands and never be separated." Xueqi's words were still ringing in his ears. However, he did not know how many years it would take to rule the world. Moreover, Martial Emperor De was standing in front of Lu Ming, blocking him. He didn't know if he could defeat Emperor De. If he failed, Wouldn't Xian Yanqing have to stay in the ancient empire of the central continent for the rest of her life? Wouldn't she stay in that place where she suffered? Xueqi, when you suddenly disappeared for 2 years, were you also brought back to the middle continent? But then you ran out again. Since you don't want to go back to that home, and that home will make you suffer, then I won't let you go. It's too long to wait for me to rule the world. I will seize every moment. Suddenly, Lu Ming opened his eyes. In his eyes, there seemed to be 2 rays of spear light piercing through the air and into the clouds. With a flash, Fatty and the others appeared beside Lu Ming. Lu Ming, have you recovered? Fatty asked. Yes. Lu Ming nodded, and then said, you guys leave Nine Dragons City first. I have something to do. Fatty's face changed, and he said, Lu Ming, are you going to save Miss Nianqing? No, you will die if you go like this. Chapter 842. Lu Ming let out a smile and said, don't worry, I have my ways. I won't risk my life. What ways? Lu Ming, you don't have to lie to us. If you have a way to deal with the Martial Highness, we'll go together. The Fatty yelled. Fatty, why do you have to do this? Lu Ming let out a sigh. Suddenly, his figure took a few steps backward. Bas! Lines of runes appeared on the ground, forming a huge formation, trapping the Fatty and his crew within it. Lu Ming already knew that the Fatty and his crew would not leave, thus he had secretly carved the runes. The formation appeared like a cage, trapping the Fatty, Wang Haoxian, Ruan Tingting, and Qiao Xian within it. Lu Ming, what are you doing? You're despicable, trapping us with a formation. Let us out at once, I'll challenge you to a duel. The Fatty yelled. Ruan Tingting and the others blurted out in panic too. Lu Ming let out a smile as his heart was filled with warmth. He was willing to take the risk, but he would not let the Fatty and his crew take the risk too. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Lu Ming let out a smile, before he glanced at Wang Haoxian and said, I've lied to you before. If anything happens to me, the soul-splitting formation will dissolve on its own. With that, Lu Ming turned around and stepped into the air. Lu Ming! Wang Haoxian glanced in the direction Lu Ming had left with a complicated expression. Let's do it, let's break the formation. The Fatty let out a furious roar as he unleashed his full strength to break the formation. Lu Ming traveled rapidly in the air, covering 1,000 li in the blink of an eye. He did not head to the ocean billow ancient garden, but to the dragon vein. He soon covered a distance of 1,000,000 li. Lu Ming returned to the location of the previous gathering. The gathering had already come to an end. The crowd had already dispersed, leaving only a few people observing the godly Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Lu Ming didn't stop as he strode towards the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. When he was within 10,000 meters, the Nine-Dragon Cauldron emitted a massive pressure. However, it didn't stop Lu Ming's footsteps at all. Step by step, he walked steadily towards the Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Soon, he was within 1,000 meters of the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. That looks like Lu Ming. It's really him. It seems like his injuries have already healed. What is he doing here? I don't know. Some people recognized Lu Ming and looked at him curiously. After the previous battle, Lu Ming's name had spread throughout Nine Dragon City. Many people believed that in time, Lu Ming would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the top 100 talents on the list of top 1,000 talents. However, there were also people who believed that Lu Ming's bloodline was only at the second level of the divine level. His potential was limited, and his future achievements could not compare to those of the top 100 prodigies. Lu Ming had no idea what was going on, nor did he care to find out. Step by step, he approached the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Roar! Within his body, the blood of the 9 dragons roared, constantly emitting draconic roars. However, outsiders could not hear it. The closer he got to the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, the more violent the 9 dragons' bloodline became. It seemed to want to rush out of his body and pounce on the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, but Lu Ming suppressed it. He was getting closer and closer to the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. 500 meters, 300 meters, 100 meters. A layer of blood-red light spread out from Lu Ming's back. Dong! At this moment, the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron vibrated. The vibration traveled thousands of miles, and the entire dragon vein seemed to shake. Not far away, the others widened their eyes. The divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron vibrated. The divine nine-dragon cauldron that has remained motionless for thousands of years actually vibrated. I heard that it vibrated once a while ago. I thought it was fake, but I didn't expect it to be true. Unbelievable. Why? Why is the divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrating? These people exclaimed. They had never thought that it was because of Lu Ming. How could a young man make the divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrate? How could the divine nine-dragon cauldron, which even martial emperors could not move, vibrate? Lu Ming's eyes were bright and persistent as he strode forward. He was getting closer and closer. Dong! The divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrated again. The surrounding people were even more shocked. In the distance, there were streaks of light flying towards them. These people had rushed over because they had heard the commotion. Heavens! The divine nine-dragon cauldron really moved? The people who rushed over later were also shocked. At this moment, Lu Ming had already reached one of the legs of the divine nine-dragon cauldron. The divine nine-dragon cauldron had 4 legs, all of which were extremely huge. That seems to be Lu Ming. What is he doing? Some of the people who came later recognized Lu Ming. Look, he is hugging the legs of the cauldron. He is going to move the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Ridiculous. Countless geniuses have tried in history, but it was useless. How can he move it? Someone sneered. However, in the next moment, everyone's expression changed drastically. Their eyes almost popped out. Lu Ming hugged the legs of the cauldron with both hands. Of course, he could not hug it completely. He could only hug a corner. Rise! Lu Ming roared. His long hair fluttered and he suddenly exerted force. Dong! As Lu Ming exerted force, the divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrated again. This time, the vibration was louder and more shocking than the previous 2 times. The vibration spread far and wide like a storm. The entire dragon vein trembled violently and shook violently. The divine nine-dragon cauldron is moving again, and it is even more violent. It can't be. Could it be that the divine nine-dragon cauldron is moving because of Lu Ming? Someone guessed. No way, it can't be. It must be a coincidence. Some people found it hard to accept and shook their heads, thinking that it was a coincidence. Rise! Lu Ming roared again. Dong! The divine nine-dragon cauldron moved again. The huge body of the cauldron was shaking. On the ground, there were huge rocks breaking and splashing. Oh my God! It's moving again. It's really because of Lu Ming. Unbelievable! Someone shouted, while more people looked at all of this with their mouths agape. In the sky, rainbow lights flashed and more people flew over. Divine nine-dragon cauldron, what are you waiting for? Now, come and fight with me! Lu Ming roared, his voice shaking the sky. The others were shocked. Lu Ming actually wanted to fight with the cauldron? Who was he going to fight? Some people remembered the grudge between Lu Ming and the ancient empire of Middle Continent a few days ago and gasped. Could it be that Lu Ming wanted to fight with the experts of the ancient empire of Middle Continent? How bold! How bold! Divine nine-dragon cauldron, I know you have a spirit. Come and fight with me. Lu Ming continued to roar. The nine dragons' bloodline in his body roared. The voice of the nine dragons' bloodline seemed to be constantly transmitted into the divine nine-dragon cauldron. However, Lu Ming felt that there was a spirit in the divine nine-dragon cauldron that was resisting. It was unwilling to leave the ground and fight with Lu Ming. You are too weak. Suddenly, a voice was transmitted into Lu Ming's ears. It seemed to come from ancient times and was full of vicissitudes. This voice could not be heard by others except for Lu Ming. I am too weak, but in the future, I will rule the world. Lu Ming roared, his battle intent invincible. Dong! Chapter 843. In Lu Ming's Sea of Consciousness, the lightning cauldron vibrated and a voice was transmitted into the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Dong! At that moment, the divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrated even more violently. The ground under the cauldron's feet suddenly exploded, sending rocks flying into the distance. Rise! Lu Ming hugged the legs of the cauldron and shouted. Then, everyone was shocked to see the cauldron as big as a mountain leave the ground. Yes, Lu Ming carried it and lifted it off the ground. At that moment, the place was dead silent. Cauldron, fight with me! Lu Ming shouted again. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood onto the divine nine-dragon cauldron. This mouthful of blood was the blood of the 9 dragons. It flowed down Lu Ming's throat and onto the divine 9-dragon cauldron. Dong! The divine 9-dragon cauldron vibrated even more violently and emitted a bright light. Lu Ming lifted it up high. Oh my god, what did I just see? Lu Ming lifted the divine 9-dragon cauldron. He really lifted the divine 9-dragon cauldron. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Did the divine 9-dragon cauldron acknowledge him? Unbelievable. Almost everyone was shouting as if they had gone mad. Rumble. The dragon vein vibrated violently as if the entire dragon vein was about to turn into a dragon and leave. At that moment, not only the dragon vein, but the other 8 dragon veins in the 9-dragon city were also vibrating violently. There was a cauldron at the head of each dragon vein. Now, those cauldrons were all vibrating. What's going on? What happened? Above the dragon vein, countless experts who were cultivating in seclusion opened their eyes one after another, revealing a look of shock. The dragon vein is vibrating. The divine 9-dragon cauldron is vibrating. What happened? Countless voices were heard. At that moment, countless experts in the 9-dragon city were startled. In the depths of the 6 ancient families, 6 middle-aged men opened their eyes. These 6 middle-aged men were the patriarchs of the 6 ancient families that Martial Emperor De had gathered previously. The divine 9-dragon cauldron is vibrating. What happened? Surprised voices were heard from the 6 people. In the depths of the Tian Imperial Guards, Yan Kuangtu was drinking wine. Suddenly, his eyes emitted a bright light as he stood up and looked into the distance. To think that the divine 9-dragon cauldron, which has not moved since ancient times, actually moved. Interesting. A curious voice came from Yan Kuangtu's mouth. On the dragon head, Lu Ming pulled out the cauldron, startling everyone. The 9-dragon cauldron actually became lighter when the blood of the 9 dragons landed on it. Lu Ming's mind raced. He took a deep breath and took a step forward. Bang! Space trembled. Lu Ming carried the cauldron and stepped in the air, causing the space to tremble violently. However, Lu Ming stood firmly in the air. Go! Then, Lu Ming took another step forward. Although the void shook, Lu Ming stood firmly. Xueqi, I'm here. Lu Ming's footsteps quickened as he soared through the air, heading towards the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. At this moment, the sky was filled with people. However, all of them were dumbfounded as they watched this scene. Lu Ming was actually able to carry the cauldron and walk into the distance. What was he trying to do? Countless people followed behind Lu Ming, wanting to see what was going on. Lu Ming, the divine 9-dragon cauldron is the most valuable treasure of the 9-dragon city. What are you trying to do by carrying the cauldron? Put it down. A few elders appeared in front of Lu Ming and berated him loudly. A terrifying aura emanated from their bodies. It was the aura of the spirit embryo realm. It's the experts of the Imperial Heavenly Guard. Someone recognized that the Imperial Heavenly Guard was the closest to this place. Scram. Lu Ming berated them and took a step forward. Boom. This step seemed to borrow the power of the cauldron. Endless pressure pressed down on the few experts. The expressions of the experts of the Imperial Heavenly Guard changed drastically as though they were under endless pressure. They screamed in pain as their bodies trembled. They were sent flying far away, coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. How is this possible? Countless people sucked in a cold breath. Lu Ming took a step forward and sent a few experts of the spirit embryo realm flying back while coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. This was too unbelievable. Lu Ming seems to be able to borrow the power of the divine 9-dragon cauldron. Terrifying. Terrifying. How did he do it? Not only can he lift the divine 9-dragon cauldron that emperors can't move, he can even borrow the power of the cauldron. How is this possible? The surroundings were bustling with noise. The experts who wanted to stop Lu Ming also had a terrible expression. They didn't dare to make a move. Lu Ming stepped on the void and walked faster and faster. In the end, he was sprinting and could travel dozens of miles in an instant. In the blink of an eye, 3 hours passed. Lu Ming was surrounded by people. Everyone was looking at Lu Ming in a daze, looking at the person who was carrying the cauldron. Lu Ming's body was really small compared to the divine 9-dragon cauldron. However, he was able to carry the divine 9-dragon cauldron. He had the strength to pick up mountains and his aura was unrivaled. This scene was deeply imprinted in everyone's heart. I've arrived at the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. Lu Ming's gaze was fixed in front of him. After 3 hours, Lu Ming had finally arrived at the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. In front of him, there were layers upon layers of palaces situated on top of a mountain. Clouds and mist were faintly discernible, making it look like a fairyland. This was the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. It was specially used by the Emperor Sky Divine Palace to receive important guests. The commotion outside had obviously alarmed the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. Whoosh, whoosh. A figure flew out. It was Xueqi, the man, and the woman. The Honorable Guardian was also there. In addition, there were 2 middle-aged burly men. At this moment, Xueqi and the rest were looking at Lu Ming in shock. Lu Ming was actually carrying a huge cauldron. Lu Ming, it's you again. What are you doing here? Are you here to die? Xueqi shouted coldly, his eyes flickering with a cold light. Hand Shaoqing over. Since Shaoqing is unwilling to go back with you, I won't let her go with you. Lu Ming's voice could be heard from afar. Little bastard, you still don't want to give up? Fine, since you're here to die, I'll send you on your way. Take him down. Xueqi waved his hand. The 2 middle-aged burly men stepped out, their bodies emitting a powerful aura. Spirit Embryo Realm. These 2 burly men were experts in the Spirit Embryo Realm. Scram! Lu Ming shouted and stepped out. Boundless pressure exploded, and the 2 burly men's faces changed. They screamed in pain and were sent flying, coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. How could this be? Xueqi's eyes were about to explode, and his mouth was wide open in disbelief. Dong! Lu Ming stepped out again, and a violent pressure came crashing down on Xueqi. 8th Prince, be careful. The Honorable Guardian moved and appeared in front of Xueqi. A terrifying aura erupted from his body, and he punched out. Heaven and earth trembled, and the space trembled violently. A pillar of air shot up into the sky and blocked Lu Ming's stomp that borrowed the power of the cauldron. A spirit god realm expert was terrifyingly powerful, and Lu Ming couldn't do anything to him even if he borrowed the power of the cauldron. The legendary divine 9-dragon cauldron of 9 Dragon City was actually pulled out by you. Unbelievable. I can't let you live today. A wisp of killing intent flashed in the Honorable Guardian's eyes as he stepped out. Boom! Chapter 844. The expressions of countless people in the surroundings changed violently. It was like a mountain was pressing down upon them, and they had the feeling that a great calamity was about to descend upon them. Shit! The Exalt is about to display his might. Let's retreat! Retreat! A wave of terrified cries resounded from the surroundings while countless figures retreated madly like ants. I've already spared you once, yet you refuse to repent. Then I'll kill you. The Exalt Guardian stretched out his palm and slashed down. A dazzling ray of light appeared and slashed down towards Lu Ming. Hiss! The sound of space being torn apart resounded as the ray of light slashed down and actually directly tore space apart, causing a pitch-black spatial rift to appear. In the distance, countless people opened their eyes wide. According to legend, domain spirit god realm experts could truly tear space apart and create spatial rifts. However, if there wasn't a major battle, then ordinary people wouldn't have the chance to see a domain spirit god realm expert fight. Now, they'd finally seen one. Sure enough, it was as the rumors said. How terrifying was the might of a palm that tore space apart. How would Lu Ming resist it? Break! Lu Ming let out a long howl. He grabbed the legs of a 9-dragon cauldron with both hands and lifted it up. Bang! The enormous cauldron collided with the ray of light. Clang! The ray of light merely shook when it struck the cauldron before it was directly destroyed. There wasn't even a trace of a mark on the cauldron. Hand Shaoqing over. Lu Ming roared as he grabbed the enormous cauldron and took a large stride forward. After that, he swung the enormous cauldron again and smashed it down towards the Exalt Guardian like a hammer. Bastard! The Exalt Guardian roared furiously while his hair and beard fluttered while his aura grew even more shocking. An enormous sword appeared in his hand, and along with his true essence pouring madly into it, the enormous sword became 10,000 meters long. It was like a divine sword that split the heavens as it slashed down towards the enormous cauldron. Clang! The enormous sword and the enormous cauldron collided, and a world-shaking rumble resounded. Boundless gales of force tore out while a pitch-black spatial rift appeared in the sky. Swish! A ray of sword chi slashed down to the ground, and a rift that was a few hundred kilometers long opened up in the ground. It was unfathomable. It was too terrifying. Such a battle was absolutely capable of obliterating the heavens and the earth. A figure stepped on the void and staggered backward. It was that Exalt Guardian, a domain-enlightened spirit god, and he'd actually been blasted back. There was an uproar at the scene. Everyone could not believe their eyes. Lu Ming was only a young man around the age of 20 and possessed a cultivation at the sea spirit realm. Yet he'd actually raised the cauldron and repelled a peerless expert at the domain-enlightened spirit god realm. This was too inconceivable, and it felt unreal as if it was a dream. Xueqi's eyes widened. He was almost scared to death. The protector of the ancient Saint dynasty was forced back by Lu Ming. If the cauldron were to hit him, wouldn't he be reduced to ashes? His back was drenched in cold sweat as he hastily retreated towards the Ocean Billow Ancient Garden. The Ocean Billow Ancient Garden was protected by a powerful array formation. Hand over Xueqi. Lu Ming strode forward, and the giant cauldron smashed towards the venerable protector again. The guardian knight roared as a huge sword with 5 golden chakras appeared above his head. That was the guardian knight's bloodline. A 5th-grade god realm bloodline. Such a bloodline was terrifying when used by a domain-enlightened spirit god. The guardian knight's figure charged into the huge sword, and the huge sword whistled as it struck towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming raised the giant cauldron and smashed it down. Another shocking explosion resounded, and heaven and earth shook. The huge sword was blasted away, but Lu Ming also staggered back. His chi and blood surged, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. But the strange thing was that when he spat out the blood, it was directly absorbed by the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. The cauldron glowed, and Lu Ming felt that the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron had become lighter. It was easier for him to wield it. He took a step forward, and the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron smashed towards the guardian knight again. The huge sword vibrated and collided with the cauldron again. Bang! This time, the huge sword was blasted away. It flew for over 100 miles before it reverted back to its human form and crashed into the ground, creating an unfathomably deep crater. Countless people were dumbfounded. Lu Ming was simply heaven-defying. He actually beat a domain-enlightened spirit god to the point that he was half dead. Lu Ming ignored the guardian knight. He carried the giant cauldron and walked towards the ancient ocean wave garden step by step. Bastard, how dare you! You deserve to die! 2 fierce shouts resounded from the ancient ocean wave garden. 2 figures charged out from the garden and stood in the air. They were 2 old men, and the aura they emitted was equally terrifying. They weren't any weaker than the guardian knight from before. In fact, they were even stronger. There was more than one domain-enlightened spirit god from the Central Continent's ancient Saint dynasty. The 2 old men were also experts from the Central Continent's ancient imperial dynasty. The 2 old men didn't say anything and charged towards Lu Ming. I told you to hand over Xueqi. Otherwise, we'll flatten the ancient ocean wave garden today. A deep roar came from Lu Ming's mouth. There was a crazed look in his eyes. Boom! Boom! He was fearless. He carried the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron and started a shocking battle with the 2 old men. More and more people came from all directions, but no one dared to come within 3,000 miles. A battle between domain-enlightened spirit gods was too shocking. Experts below the domain-enlightened spirit god realm would only die if they got close. Xian Yanqing sat cross-legged on the bed in a room in the depths of the ancient ocean wave garden. Her aura was extremely weak. Her true yuan and spirit flame had been sealed. She looked like an ordinary person. She sat quietly on the bed with a longing look in her eyes. Lu Ming, how are you? I thought that those fellows wouldn't come since the Battle of Providence was approaching. I didn't expect that they would still come. I can't hide from them in the end. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to that disgusting home. Xian Yanqing murmured softly. The Middle Continent ancient Saint dynasty had a long history. Legend had it that it had been passed down since ancient times. The ancient Saint dynasty's Xie clan had the bloodline of the ancient human emperor. The bloodline that they had awakened was holy and sacred. However, Xian Yanqing had awakened the heavenly demon bloodline. To the holy and sacred Xie clan, it was a lowly and dirty bloodline. Moreover, Xian Yanqing's mother was only a servant girl. Her father had given birth to Xian Yanqing because of her. However, after Xian Yanqing had awakened the heavenly demon bloodline, her mother had been killed as a heretic. Xian Yanqing was the descendant of the ancient Saint dynasty's emperor after all. That was why she had managed to survive. However, she had been ridiculed and humiliated. Xian Yanqing had lived under such a shadow since she was young. She hated that clan and wanted to escape. There were other examples like her in the history of the ancient Saint dynasty's Xie clan. The dark side of light was the dark side. Occasionally, a completely dark bloodline would be born among the divine bloodlines. In history, there had been such bloodlines that had caused chaos in the world and almost destroyed the ancient Saint dynasty. Therefore, those who had such heavenly demon bloodlines had all met a tragic end. There was no exception. Xian Yanqing hated that clan because of her mother. She also knew that she would not have a good ending if she continued to stay in that clan. Secretly, there were many people who wanted to get rid of her. Chapter 845. She had escaped a few times, but every time, she was found and brought back. They claimed that they couldn't allow a freak like her to ruin the reputation of the Xie clan. How laughable! She had never said that she was a member of the Xie clan. She disdained to be a member of the Xie clan. Those people from the Xie clan just didn't want her to live in this world. If it wasn't for the fact that the ancient emperor was her father, she would have died a long time ago. Lu Ming, no matter what kind of environment I face when I return, I will not die. I will work hard in my cultivation. I will wait for you to come and get me when you return. Xian Yanqing muttered as her eyes lit up. She believed that Lu Ming could do it. Hand Xiaoqing over. Since Xiaoqing isn't willing to go back with you, I won't let her go with you. Suddenly, an angry roar came from outside. Xian Yanqing's body trembled. It was Lu Ming's voice. Lu Ming, why are you here? You shouldn't have come. Xian Yanqing's eyes were filled with anxiety. She got up and rushed out of the door. Unfortunately, there were formations set up all around the room. Her cultivation was sealed, so she couldn't rush out at all. As soon as she touched the wooden door, a bolt of lightning flashed on the door. She flew out as if she was struck by lightning. She fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Ming, why are you here? Hurry up and leave. Xian Yanqing shouted. However, her voice could only reverberate in the small room. It couldn't travel out at all. Hand Xiaoqing over. Lu Ming's angry roars could be heard from outside from time to time. Along with his roars, there was an earth-shattering rumble. Lu Ming, leave. Xian Yanqing shouted as tears flowed down her face. She rushed towards the wooden door again. However, she was struck by lightning just like before. She spat out a mouthful of blood. She didn't know what method Lu Ming had used to fight the experts of the ancient Saint dynasty. However, she knew that the ancient Saint dynasty's Xie clan had sent more than one spirit god realm expert. Furthermore, this was the Nine Dragon City, and the ancient Saint dynasty's Xie clan was an esteemed guest of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. How could the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace allow Lu Ming to deal with their esteemed guest? Lu Ming was destined to be in danger. Sure enough, not long after, two more powerful cultivators from the Xie clan of the ancient Saint dynasty rushed out. The battle outside was even more intense. Lu Ming, you fool! Xian Yanqing whispered. No matter how hard he tried, he could not stop the tears from rolling down his cheeks. There was blood at the corner of her mouth. The blood mixed with her tears, making her look as beautiful as a flower. In the sky above Hai Lan Ancient Park, the battle had reached its climax. Lu Ming fought two domain enlightened spirit gods with a divine nine-dragon cauldron, and the entire heavens and the earth seethed while numerous spatial rifts flashed into appearance. Lu Ming had actually relied on the divine nine-dragon cauldron to suppress two domain enlightened spirit gods. Yes, Lu Ming had the upper hand in the battle against two domain enlightened spirit gods. Lu Ming, how dare you attack an esteemed guest of the ancient Saint dynasty? Are you trying to frame the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace? Capture him and hand him over to His Majesty. Cold shouts resounded from the sky as over a dozen figures descended. Every single one of them emitted a terrifying aura. Domain enlightened spirit gods. These dozen figures were all domain enlightened spirit gods. The domain enlightened spirit gods of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace had arrived. This bastard actually dared to touch the divine nine-dragon cauldron that even emperors couldn't touch. He must be a demon. We should capture him and interrogate him before executing him. One of the old men shouted coldly. His voice was filled with killing intent. This old man wore a starry robe. He was the Shangguan clan's elder with real authority, Shangguan Wuchen and Shangguan Wuling's grandfather, Shangguan Zhongyuan. Half a year ago, he'd repeatedly sent experts to kill Lu Ming, but they'd all been killed by Lu Ming. He'd been looking for an opportunity to kill Lu Ming since a long time ago. Now, it was the right time for him to personally make a move. Dong. Shangguan Zhongyuan took a step forward. Starlight that filled the sky descended and transformed into a starry sword that slashed violently towards Lu Ming. As one of the few domain-enlightened spirit gods in the Shangguan clan, his combat strength was extremely terrifying. Bang! Bang! At the same time, a few other domain-enlightened spirit gods attacked as well. Terrifying attacks blasted towards Lu Ming. In addition to the 2 experts from the Central Continent's ancient Saint dynasty, there were a total of 6 experts that attacked Lu Ming at the same time. The entire sky was shattered as numerous spatial rifts appeared. Lu Ming felt unparalleled pressure. Roar! The 9 dragons' bloodline within Lu Ming's body let out long howls as dense blood qi effused out. Puh! Lu Ming spat out another mouthful of blood onto the divine 9-dragon cauldron. This was the blood of the 9 dragons' bloodline. The divine 9-dragon cauldron shook as Lu Ming raised it and swept it out horizontally. Bang! 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 The 6 attacks were all blocked by Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's body shook violently as well. His bones seemed to be on the verge of breaking, and his entire body was numb from the shock. However, he'd blocked them in the end. The others in the surroundings gasped incessantly. Lu Ming had actually resisted 6 domain-enlightened spirit gods by himself and was actually able to survive. Even though it was because of the divine 9-dragon cauldron, being able to utilize the divine 9-dragon cauldron itself was an extremely terrifying thing. Everyone, this kid is evil. Let's attack together and capture him and hand him over to His Majesty to deal with. Shangguan Zhongyuan cried out. There were still 7 domain-enlightened spirit gods in the sky who hadn't made a move. They originally disdained to besiege a junior. However, their gazes flickered when they heard Shangguan Zhongyuan. The divine 9-dragon cauldron is of great importance. It hasn't been moved for ages, yet it moved because of him. We really have to capture him and get to the bottom of this. Someone spoke. Exactly. Someone replied. Thump, thump. Even more people stepped forward while emanating violent auras. Come. I'll slaughter the domain-enlightened spirit gods today. Lu Ming roared loudly while his eyes were filled with madness. He'd originally intended to utilize the divine 9-dragon cauldron to crush the exalted guardians and take Xian Yanqing away from 9-dragon city. However, these supreme domain-enlightened spirit gods from Emperor Heaven Divine Palace had actually joined forces against him without any reason. Thus, he could only fight today. Attack! This time, a total of 9 domain-enlightened spirit gods attacked. Their terrifying might swept out in a vast array as 9 attacks of various colors enveloped down towards Lu Ming. The attacks hadn't even arrived when Lu Ming suffered terrifying pressure, and his body seemed as if it was on the verge of exploding apart. If he hadn't relied on the might of the divine 9-dragon cauldron to protect himself, he would have been blasted into pieces a long time ago. Roar! Roar! The 9 dragons' bloodline within his body roared violently without end. At this moment, Lu Ming couldn't suppress it any longer, and the 9 dragons' bloodline shot into the sky as he roared furiously. The dragon roar resounded through the heavens and the earth while the 9 dragons' bloodline's body expanded swiftly to become over 10,000 meters long, and it coiled around the divine 9-dragon cauldron. That's a god-rank bloodline. Heavens! What's going on? Isn't Lu Ming's bloodline a stone tablet? Why has it become a true dragon? 2 god-rank bloodlines. How could this be possible? How could this be possible? Some people had seen Lu Ming attack, and they cried out with disbelief at this moment. Chapter 846. The 9-dragon bloodline roared at the sky. The divine 9-dragon cauldron shook violently and radiated light. Boom boom. Lu Ming lifted the 9-dragon cauldron and swept it out, once again destroying the 9 attacks. The 9-dragon bloodline roared again and spat out a mouthful of blood onto the divine 9-dragon cauldron. At this moment, the true dragon carvings on the divine 9-dragon cauldron seemed to have come alive as dragon roars could be heard. At this moment, the 9 dragon veins in the 9-dragon city shook violently and dragon roars could be heard. Countless people were shocked. Clang! Clang! 8 of the dragon veins had 8 divine 9-dragon cauldrons on them, and all of them were shaking violently. Suddenly, the 9-dragon cauldron closest to Lu Ming vibrated the most violently. Gravel flew everywhere. This divine cauldron actually left the ground, cut through the void, and disappeared. At this moment, deep within the 6 ancient families, the 6 family heads' eyes shone brightly. The strange true dragon bloodline. His Majesty was talking about this kid. The 6 of them said at the same time and stood up and took a step forward. When they took a step forward, a crack appeared in the void. They stepped into the crack and disappeared. 1,000,000 miles away, the fat man roared. "Ah, break for me!" His fat body swelled and his eyes were red as he swung the battle axe in his hand. At the same time, Wang Haoxian, Ruan Tingting, and Qiao Xian helped him and attacked the array that trapped them. Puff! The fat man spat out a mouthful of blood on the battle axe, increasing its power. A terrifying axe radiance seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth. Boom! Smoke and dust filled the air, and the formation collapsed with a loud bang. The formation was broken. "Let's go to the Ocean Wave Ancient Garden." Fatty roared, and the group of people quickly flew towards the Ocean Wave Ancient Garden. In the sky above the Ocean Wave Ancient Garden. "This kid is evil. Everyone, attack!" Shangguan Zhongyuan roared. At this moment, the remaining spiritual gods appeared around Lu Ming and surrounded him. There were a total of 13 spiritual gods. Attack! Clang! Just as they were about to make a move, another huge cauldron descended from the sky. Another divine 9-dragon cauldron. How is this possible? The second one. Could it be that Lu Ming can control the second one? Everyone was so shocked that they almost jumped up. "Come fight with me." Lu Ming let out a long roar. He reached out his right hand and grabbed one of the legs of the second divine 9-dragon cauldron. Lu Ming grabbed one in each hand. The 2 huge 9-dragon cauldrons were like 2 huge iron hammers. "You old man, I'll kill you first." Lu Ming stared at Shangguan Zhongyuan and took large strides forward. The large cauldron was like a giant hammer as it smashed towards Shangguan Zhongyuan. This old man was filled with killing intent as soon as he appeared. He couldn't wait to kill Lu Ming. It was exactly because of his instigation that the other domain enlightened spirit gods had successively attacked, otherwise, there wouldn't be so many domain enlightened spirit gods besieging him. "Let's attack together." Shangguan Zhongyuan's expression changed drastically, and he roared loudly. Starlight surged, and an enormous rift seemed to have split open in the sky. A pillar of starlight descended down onto Shangguan Zhongyuan. The starlight condensed and transformed into countless starry battle swords, piercing toward Lu Ming. At the same time, the other 12 experts attacked as well. All sorts of attacks blasted towards Lu Ming. The 2 cauldrons danced about in Lu Ming's hand. One of them was mainly used to block the attacks of the others, whereas the other in his right hand smashed madly towards Shangguan Zhongyuan. He only targeted a single person and attacked madly. The bloodline of the 9 dragons howled, and it seemed to have formed some sort of resonance with the divine 9-dragon cauldron, causing its might to increase greatly. Bang! As the enormous cauldron smashed down, all of Shangguan Zhongyuan's attacks vanished into thin air. The enormous cauldron that was large like a mountain smashed forcefully onto Shangguan Zhongyuan, and a strand of terrifying energy effused out from it. This energy firmly locked onto Shangguan Zhongyuan, causing him to be unable to dodge and could only take it head-on. A trace of astonishment appeared in his eyes, and the energy of the stars erupted madly. His fists were like 2 stars that blasted towards the enormous cauldron. But at the instant they came into contact with the enormous cauldron, the starlight was extinguished, and Shangguan Zhongyuan's fists instantly shattered. He let out a shrill cry as his body was blasted flying. Bang! 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 The attacks of the others were all blocked by Lu Ming with the other divine 9-dragon cauldron. Moreover, they were firmly blocked. The eruption of the 9 dragons' bloodline and the increase in number of cauldrons caused their might to rise to a terrifying level. Dong! Dong! Lu Ming strode through the air and continued charging towards Shangguan Zhongyuan. The enormous cauldron covered the sky as it pierced through space and smashed towards Shangguan Zhongyuan. The terrifying aura it emanated caused Shangguan Zhongyuan's heart to tremble. "No, no!" Shangguan Zhongyuan roared loudly. He felt death approaching, and this feeling made him feel like he was about to go mad. He'd come today to kill Lu Ming, not to throw his life away. He roared loudly as a tiger star appeared above his head, and there were 3 golden chakras on the tiger star. A 3rd-grade god rank bloodline could be considered to be inferior in the domain enlightened spirit god realm. Shangguan Zhongyuan transformed into the tiger star and hoped that he could resist Chen Shi's attack. However, in the next moment, he felt despair. The tiger star instantly collapsed under the pressure of the enormous cauldron, and he transformed back into his human form. Moreover, his body cracked apart under the enormous pressure. Bang! His entire body exploded apart, and both his body and soul were obliterated. Countless people felt cold air run through their bodies when they witnessed this scene. A domain-enlightened spirit god had been killed just like that. He died just like that. He'd been smashed to death by Lu Ming's cauldron. This was too inconceivable. Especially the disciples of the Shangguan clan, their countenances had turned ghastly pale, and they were extremely terrified. The other 12 domain-enlightened spirit gods were extremely terrified as well, and their figures retreated swiftly. The 12 of them joined forces, and their auras fused together. Shangguan Zhongyuan's fate caused them to be shocked. Since Lu Ming could kill one of them, then he could kill another. So the 12 of them didn't dare split up. Swoosh! Swoosh! At this moment, howls resounded incessantly in the sky. This time, at least 20 figures had appeared in the sky, and every single one of them emanated a terrifying aura. The domain-enlightened spirit gods were all experts at the domain-enlightened spirit god realm, and even more domain-enlightened spirit god realm experts had arrived. These experts descended and converged with the 12 experts from before, and their formidable auras enveloped down towards Lu Ming. Clang! Clang! The 2 cauldrons shook while the bloodline of the 9 dragons roared, and they felt terrifying pressure. If you want to fight, then let's fight to the end today. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with battle intent. He held a cauldron in each hand as he faced the 30-plus domain-enlightened spirit gods from afar, and his eyes were completely fearless. You're so young, yet your will isn't small. Unfortunately, you've used it in the wrong place. An extremely dignified voice suddenly resounded through the heavens and the earth. It wasn't those domain-enlightened spirit god realm experts, and it was someone else. No one knew where this voice came from, and it seemed as if it existed in the heavens and the earth. However, the hearts of practically everyone constricted when they heard this voice, and it was like they were facing a terrifying existence. Swish! Chapter 847. Lu Ming's pupils constricted rapidly. He could feel a terrifying pressure coming from the flaming sword. This pressure was even stronger than the combined forces of the dozens of spiritual god realm experts. It posed a fatal threat to him. Lu Ming roared furiously. He exerted all his strength and swung the 2 huge cauldrons at the flaming sword. Boom! A huge explosion resounded. The huge cauldrons shook, and the void shattered. Endless flames spread out. The terrifying heat caused the space to distort and crack. The raging flames burned through the space. The scene was extremely shocking. Interesting. The dignified voice continued to resound. Then, a middle-aged man in a purple robe stepped out of the spatial crack. He held the flaming sword in his hand and stood in the void. His body was also suffused with purple flames. A huge black hole appeared in the area where he stood. There was nothing in the black hole, only an endless and terrifying void. That was because the terrifying temperature of the middle-aged man's body had burned through the space. Supreme Being. It's a Supreme Being. It's the Wang clan's patriarch. The Wang clan's Supreme Being is here. Waves of incredulous exclamations and roars resounded. Some people's eyes widened as they roared loudly. They were too shocked. Lu Ming had actually lured a Supreme Being out. Exalts were existences that stood at the peak of the domain-enlightened spirit god realm, and it was even to the extent that they'd already surpassed the domain-enlightened spirit god realm and were existences that had taken half a step into the martial monarch realm. Every single one of these existences were existences that ruled over an area and were invincible. Supreme beings were the strongest in the absence of martial monarchs. There were only a handful of such people in the entire Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Even such people had appeared now. However, the crowd's shock had just begun. Rip! Rip! High up in the sky, the space cracked continuously. Many figures stepped out of the cracks. There were 5 of them. Including the Wang clan's patriarch, there were a total of 6 people. The 6 figures stood in 6 different directions. Every one of them had a terrifying and domineering aura. One of them was like a peerless divine weapon just by standing there. His sharp aura directly tore the space apart. One of them was filled with battle intent, like a god of war who had been through hundreds of battles. Another was elegant. The 6 of them each had their own unique characteristics, but the one thing they had in common was that they were strong, too strong. Their auras were vast and mighty. Even from thousands or tens of thousands of miles away, one could still feel the terrifying pressure. Heavens, heavens, those are the family heads of the 6 great ancient families. They are all supreme beings. The supreme beings of the 6 great ancient families have all come out. Someone shouted crazily. However, most of the people remained silent, because they were already numb to it. The 6 supremes had only appeared when they were facing an enemy emperor Dao expert. Now, they had all appeared because of Lu Ming. Little guy, you're really something. You're the first one to make the 9-dragon cauldron move because of you. Now, come with me. His Majesty Empress Wu wants to see you. One of the middle-aged men spoke. Although his voice was calm, it was filled with authority. Someone recognized that this was the patriarch of the Dongfang family. At the scene, the hearts of countless people trembled once again. Even Martial Emperor De had been alarmed. Martial Emperor De had sent 6 supreme beings just to see Lu Ming? Many people already felt that it was difficult to breathe. What had happened today was beyond their imagination. Maybe it was because of the 9-dragon cauldron. Many people guessed. They're really here? They're so fast. Lu Ming's pupils shrank as he thought quickly. When the 9 dragons' blood rushed out and resonated with the 9-dragon cauldron, Lu Ming knew that the 9 dragons' blood might be exposed. However, the other party had come faster than he had expected. Others thought that it was because of the 9-dragon cauldron, but Lu Ming knew that Martial Emperor De was looking for him because he had discovered the 9 dragons' blood. It was because of the 9 dragons' blood. De wants to see me. Tell him to come here himself. Lu Ming said loudly. Since he had already come this far, it was useless to be afraid. It was better to face it directly. However, his words caused an earthquake. Countless people opened their eyes wide and felt that their hearts were about to jump out of their chests. Lu Ming dared to call Martial Emperor De by his name. Moreover, he even asked Martial Emperor De to see him? Lawless. This was lawless. A mere sea of soul realm martial artist dared to ask a martial emperor to see him. If a martial emperor wanted to see him, it would be a great honor for him. It was something that countless people wished for. They really could not figure out where Lu Ming got his guts from. Lu Ming sneered. He knew that meeting Martial Emperor De would not bode well for him. Therefore, there was nothing to be afraid of. Bastard, how dare you? A mere ant dares to boast so shamelessly. You deserve to die. The Wang clan leader shouted coldly. He was very overbearing and filled with murderous intent. This kid is too arrogant. No matter how talented he is, he will not be controlled if he succeeds. It's better to cripple him and hand him over to His Majesty. The Zhang clan leader said coldly. His voice was like a divine weapon being polished. It made people's hearts beat faster. All right, since he is so stubborn, let's take him down. The Luan clan leader said. All right, who will do it? The Zhang clan leader said. I'll do it. The Wang clan leader said with flames burning in his eyes. The other 5 nodded and took a step back. All of you, step back and protect the surroundings. The Wang clan leader glanced at the dozens of spiritual god realm experts. Yes. The dozens of spiritual god realm experts retreated to various corners and prepared to protect the mountains and rivers. Junior, since you are so stubborn, then I'll do it myself. Boom. As the Wang clan leader spoke, a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering aura erupted from his body. Violet flames spread out, burning through even more space in the surrounding area. The flaming sword in his hand expanded rapidly and became 10,000 meters long. Retreat! Retreat! The spectators in the distance were extremely terrified and retreated madly again. A prime was about to make a move. If even a wisp of energy leaked out, it would probably be a disaster. It could kill ordinary martial artists countless times. They had no choice but to retreat. Swoosh! The vast sword in the Wang clan leader's hand slashed violently at Lu Ming. Everywhere the sword passed, space turned into nothingness, revealing a terrifying dark void. OM! The divine 9-dragon cauldron shook while the 9 dragons' bloodline roared. Lu Ming grabbed the 2 cauldrons and smashed them explosively at the Wang clan leader. Bang! A terrifying collision resounded once more. The heavens and the earth shook without end, and the cauldrons shook while boundless energy dispersed towards the surroundings. The dozens of spiritual god realm experts below shouted loudly while radiance effused out from their hands and blocked all the terrifying energy. Lu Ming felt boundless blazing energy surge towards him. Even with the protection of the two cauldrons, he still felt like he was about to be burned into ashes. He took a large step back and stepped through space. The Wang clan prime has the upper hand. Lu Ming is about to be defeated. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.